All right. Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Motley Crude, episode number 28. This evening, we're going to be talking about Grand Cathay. A very, very exciting episode for everybody, I'm sure. Before we get to all that, though, with me tonight, I've got my usual suspects. First of all, Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm good.
Awesome. And Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing great. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Before we get to Grand Cathay, let's talk about some hobby stuff. Ryan, why don't you lead us off this week with what you've been up to from a hobby perspective?
I built 14 handgunners and attempted to assemble Orion until I got mad at him, and he's sitting half assembled on my desk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
How about you guys?
Andrew?
I've just been doing a lot of 3D printing and building terrain. Yeah, that's about it. Not much else.
Good. You is it for CCBB or?
Yeah, I'm off. I'm off the Necromunda train until at least I get the 5 tables done for CCBB for Old World, and a bunch of the 40Ks left out.
Fair. Good stuff. Good stuff. On my end, so unfortunately, I didn't play any games over the last week and a half since we recorded last time. I do have a game tomorrow night planned, my first one for the SBOT 360 tournament. I'm playing into High Elves, so that should be fun. And then I did do a lot of hobbying though. So I finished painting those 2 skin wolves that I was talking about the last time we recorded. Including like the special event only Forge World model from like 2012, which I think came out pretty cool. I gave him null. I gave the he's dragging an Empire State Trooper around, Ryan. So I gave him null colors just so I don't know if you noticed. Okay, good stuff. I did a lot of building also, so I've got my next big batch of like Wolves of the Sea models that I'm building right now. I'm also building a bunch of Minotaurs for that Army of Infamy. And yeah, I'm going to be converting up some stuff too there over the next few days. Like I want to do a Minotaur BSB, and then I want to do I need to do a bunch more Marauder Berserkers for my Wolves of the Sea. So pretty busy from a hobby perspective. Okay. Just before we slide into the main subject, in terms of news, there hasn't been a ton of stuff over the last week. There's been the one, there's been a few Old World Almanacs, but none of them that really mattered too much. We did learn, there was another one yesterday, and we did learn in there that, Ying, so the big dragon, won't be releasing with Wave 1 of Cathay, although we do have our rules in the book, and we'll be talking about them later. And then Wave 2 is coming later this year. So we've been talking here on the show about how Wave 2, we have heard rumors that Wave 2 would be around December, January, so that aligns with what was really revealed by Games Workshop, and then gives some other credence to stuff where we were talking about like Dogs of War, Talea, all that cool and interesting stuff. So that is some interesting news. And if you're a Cathay fan, then you won't have to wait too long for the second of, I guess, 3 portions of your army, 3 portions of your army. So that's all cool stuff. Guys, anybody want to comment on these little news items before we move on?
I think Meow Ying coming out later is kind of a weird choice. I'm sure that likely has to do with a production problem or something. Because honestly, I wasn't like super looking forward to this release from like a buying anything perspective, but I kind of wanted the dragon model because it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, one of the biggest gripes you'll hear throughout the entire episode from probably not just me, is that there's so few options in this army.
Yeah.
That, the fact that hopefully by the end of the year, early next year, us getting additional content for it, will help fix some of the structural problems that will kind of become clearer as the episode wears on.
Yeah, 100% agreed with you. And I think also Miao Ying will certainly be proxied until she's released, because I think she's due to the problems you just briefly touched on, Ryan. Like, she's a pretty integral part of the army right now. She fills a role that nothing else fills. But anyways, we'll get to that. Okay, so Cathay, let's talk about that. So first of all, I'm going to ask you both your thoughts on the army from a rules perspective. Do you like what the designers have done with it? Do you think it'll be fun to play? Like, we're not talking competitive or anything like this, just like the overall feel of the rules that you're reading and the narrative of the army, that kind of stuff. Like, Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Going through the rules today, um, as an elf player, it feels like a weird combination of human and elf. There's a
Sure.
lot of weird side rules and stuff layered on top of sort of basic humans that make them feel kind of elfish in the way they play, or at least just from reading it. Um, so yeah, that's kind of my impression. It's like a weird hybrid army of elf and human,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think that it'd be fun to play as right now, or not?
That's harder for me because like we'll see the army list is very limited just because there's not a lot of choices.
Yeah.
So right now I feel like you're kind of forced into one type of play style, and it's not really one I would enjoy, but I
Mhm.
think people, will get some use and will get some fun out of this list. And, it is the new kind of shiny thing. So I think there's appeal there because of that. Like, it's just going to be neat to play something, fresh off the press, and something that's basically custom made for old world as opposed to rehashing old armies and old tropes. Like, I think that's exciting, and it will be fun to play because of that. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think right now it's really tight. There's not a lot of options,
Yeah.
which we'll see when we talk. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you're into it, you'll like it.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on the last one there, Andrew, in terms of this just being super exciting for the game. I think everybody, regardless of what you think of this army, can agree that this is like the first army in 20 plus years that this game gets, or this universe gets. So that is like incredibly exciting. Um, in terms of like how I feel about the army from a rules perspective and selling the theme of the army, I guess the first thing I'm going to say is I disagree with the majority take on the internet right now, and that you've seen or heard, I'm sure, of in other podcasts or read on Reddit, etc. Like, I don't think the army is broken or OP or overtuned or whatever. I think the rules sell the army, like the overall theme, pretty well. I think that's a success from my point of view. I think I would describe them like, if I close my eyes and I think about what Grand Cathay is to me, it's sort of a mix of an ancient Chinese, high tech, magic infused sort of civilization. And I think the rules definitely, the bits that we have do sell that, but it is incomplete. As far as as my opinion goes, like, you have like the stuff that is there works, and it sort of allows you to see what the end result will be when the full army is released, but right now it's just not a complete picture. So until then, like, is it going to be fun to play? Ultimately my answer is yes. Like, I think once the faction gets fleshed out, it's going to be a great army, like from a rules, theme, aesthetic perspective. But I think that period between wave 1 and 2 is going to be a little rough, and I'm not convinced with how much fun you're going to have. Like, aside from just playing a bunch of new models and a bunch of new things that, like as Andrew mentioned, I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to get out of this range right now. But like, we'll talk about that at length. I just think you're going to end up in a very narrow play style at this point. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think they nailed it, like, thematically, at least on a unit by unit level. Um, like, I feel like, again, we'll get to it, but like the elemental winds mechanic for the army seems very on brand for what I know about Cathay. And like each unit entry seems to have those little extra tweaks that make them feel like they're not just like better state troops, or like they're all like different in some little way that is unique to Cathay, like the Lancers being kind of a hordy unit with worse lances, um, or things like that. So like I think they really kind of nailed it with all the units, almost all the units. And I really enjoy things like the wizard lords, where like I think is one of the few situations where you actually have a character that is like simultaneously like a good combat character and wizard at the same time.
Mhm.
Those are neat from a theme perspective. I do think there's one miss on the overarching army, which is that like if this is an expeditionary force being sent by boat um to, you know, assist in the defense of, you know, the northern edge of the old world, it doesn't really feel like a collection of units that got sent by boat anywhere. This is like a
Sure.
weirdly like nitpicky thing, but it like it definitely looks like they built a larger army list and then just went what product's going to be available by this date and like struck things off of it.
Yeah.
Um because again, if I'm building an expeditionary force, horde-sized units of moderately crap cavalry is like not what I'm filling my boat with.
No,
Or you
yeah,
know
yeah.
like
Hordes of
giant,
cavalry notorious for boat travel. Yeah.
yeah, like giant multi-ton statues, like, you
Yeah.
know, like these are not the things that make sense for like an expeditionary landing force being sent all the way around the planet.
Fair.
So it's just kind of a weird thematic gripe. But otherwise, like I
Yeah.
think the overall rules and a lot of the individual rules look fun and interesting and very representative. And as I'm sure all of our listeners have probably realized, I'm a big fan of rules that encourage you to play the army like it is, a lot of air quotes here, but meant to be played.
Yeah.
Like another perfect example is like Brett Exiles and like how they get the vow back, like by making you do certain things. So
Yeah.
I like all of that. But to echo both of what you said, I also feel that it's incomplete, and you know, when it has more units, it might make a more cohesive or synergistic army. Where right now you have some data sheet or some unit entries that are, you know, ranging from pretty to very good, and in some cases probably for not enough points for what they are.
Mhm.
Um, and some other unit entries that are legitimately terrible. Um, but none of them really like do anything together. Like
Yeah.
like you know, five individual fingers does not a fist make kind of problem.
Mhm.
Um, that's it.
That's some like weird Cathayan saying.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Not gonna lie, that analogy comes from when I was in university and I watched a senior officer punch a whiteboard trying to make a point about how teamwork works. So
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Kung Fu Panda or something, but fair,
Yeah.
fair enough. Okay, yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And like the point about the expeditionary force is one I was gonna make later on when we were talking about army composition and specifically mercenaries. But yeah, like I'm totally on board with you. So yeah, let's keep going here a little bit. So let's talk about it more in terms of like the competitive legs that you guys think this army has or doesn't have right now. Potentially, whether you think it falls a little bit short because of the amount of units that are available, which I know we sort of all agree on, but nonetheless. So let's start with yeah, let's go right back to Ryan. I know you touched on some of those points, but anything you want to add?
yeah, in that vein, again, like I do think it needs a couple other niches filled to really do anything. Um, on the competitive front, I think there's going to be some very annoying like builds that are going to put some people off guard and whatnot. But like it's not going to overtake like Mort cults or even Grand Army Bretonians.
Yeah.
But it's definitely going to be able to do some stuff that it will be disruptive to the overall metagame because it's introducing different things. And of
Sure.
course, this is also all caveated by the fact that all of what the metagame is could be changing in the next
Yeah.
couple weeks. So that's the thing. But no, I do think like we are currently in an iteration of the game where if you just slam a bunch of like powerful, vaguely durable characters supported by some decent shooting and magic, you're gonna do stuff.
Yeah.
But
And
unlike, say, Bretonians, like those characters don't have a delivery system in the form of like Pegasus Knights or you lacking a lot of internal synergy to provide character protection.
yeah.
Like it's just a lot of kind of missing pieces to that would go that extra mile.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Just one thing I want to seize on that you mentioned there, Ryan, for our listeners is I wanted to caveat this at the start, but I forgot. We're recording this likely 24 to 72 hours before the match playbook is leaked and probably the FAQ comes out, maybe a little bit more on the FAQ side, but nonetheless, the game is about to change in potentially a small but potentially a large manner. So our comments may all be sort of sideways if you're listening to this in a few weeks, but bear with us. So yeah, Ryan, on just coming back to like the question here in terms of competitive play, I'm gonna say to me like the Cathay army as it currently stands feels a little bit like a proof of concept test. The army doesn't feel complete right now, and the lack of options is really going to hurt you competitively. I think you're going to run into a number of problems when list building with this army as it stands right now. So the first thing is like the cost of it is going to be prohibitive if you're trying to build a solid list. So it feels to me like you've got, like the designers have said, here is the elite top third of your army. Now go make a list with it using only these models. And however you shake things in that 2,000 points, you're probably going to have the Soul Dragon, probably going to have one Longma, potentially some baby Longmas along with it, and you're going to have some cannons. And all of those models are very expensive, and they're making it into your lists. Once you add like 500 points of core, there's basically nothing left, right? Sure, some people are going on online about doing like some 6 cannon madness list, but that's like half your list. It's like 900 points, right? So it's not really, I think, tenable. So like cost is a problem right now because of the units which are in the book. The other thing I'll say, and I think you both touched on this briefly earlier, but list archetypes are really restricted because of the units that you have here, right? So, there's not a lot of units, as we've mentioned, and as Ryan was going on about a minute ago here, they're not mutually supportive. So you end up having to make a kind of take all comers type list, and there's not a lot of variety that's possible, right? So let's say you want to play an oops all cavalry list. You can't because Jade Lancers aren't really going to cut it, and you can't fill your entire list with them regardless. Let's say you want to play a gun line type list. Sure, your cannons are really nice, but like, where are your Iron Drakes or Ushabti or Poison Shooting Block or Hellblaster Volley Gun analogs? Like, they're just not there right now for you to make that build. You want to do a Death Star, for instance, like, which unit are you going to build it off of? Because it's probably not Jade Warriors. Magic Dominance, like, sure, you've got some good casters and they can get a +1 to cast, but your dragon, for instance, is usually going to be a level 2 caster, and even if you have a pair of Longmas, this does not make you into like a Mort cult or a coven of great Bray shamans. It's not enough. And then the last big point I think that's going to be problematic competitively is I'm not convinced about the damage output of this army. So yeah, sure, cannons are going to cannon and they're great and that's fine. And the dragon is a good hammer. But I mean, beyond that, I think the army kind of struggles with damage output. There's like a good selection of magic missiles here, but it's not enough. There's no, 30 Sisters of Averlorn block here. There are no Dragon Ogres. There's no Peg Knight Bus and all the associated characters. There's nothing like that to really punch up in this army. So, and yeah, by the way, like single dragon builds are not in a fantastic place in the meta right now. Understanding that may change very, very shortly, but nonetheless, you're kind of pushed towards that kind of list, and it's not really in a good place because everybody's tooled up for it. So yeah, what I'm getting at, just to sort of close this off here, is it doesn't feel like a competitive a complete army from a competitive standpoint. You can build an average take all comers type list and win 2-3 games at an event with it. I'm convinced. However, like Grand Cathay is not competing with Tomb Kings, Bretonians, Vampire Count's going to be problematic. Warriors of Chaos. I think even High Elves are like a head and shoulders above this army. So probably not a tournament winning army right now. Andrew, what are your thoughts on the competitive chops here?
Yeah, I think you guys covered a lot of it. Like looking at everything in its own bubble, you're like, oh shit, that's kind of strong, or that's a little bit overtuned. But once you start plugging all these things into an actual list, you're going to find out really quickly that it's like, I actually can't take all this stuff. So, like any sort of potential, like, well, if I layer this on top of this on top of this, I'm going to fucking own everybody. You actually can't fit all that stuff into an actual list. So, those arguments are kind of non-existent just because I think it's too easy to fall into that trap of just like looking at everything on its own and not seeing how it actually all fits together into a cohesive army. The other thing too, and you guys touched on it, but I think this is the main point. The FAQ is coming. GW themselves have said, they're going to be changing some core mechanics. Now we've seen some leaks, although I'm pretty sure those have all been kind of proven to be not quite the truth or more
Wish lists. Yeah.
Yeah. But we know that it's probably stuff along those veins. So looking at the Cathay army right now, it's never going to play in the game as it currently is. By all reports, like the FAQs coming out basically at the same time or very soon after this book releases, alongside the competitive rules book. So like, it's never gonna take part in our current meta. So it's really hard to be like, oh, this is overtuned, because we don't actually know how this book's gonna play in the updated game.
Yeah.
And I don't think people are taking that fact into account when you kind of go on these Facebook groups and stuff, and people are like, holy shit, this army's busted. It's like, not really, but also it's not even going to be playing the same game we're currently playing. It's going to be playing the updated FAQ rules game. So like, I don't know, it just feels silly to make those kind of points at, knowing that this FAQ is like right hot on the heels of this release.
Yeah, fully agreed. Yeah, fully agreed.
I've got one more thing to throw in there too, and just as a caveat as we go through all this, like people listening, people discussing this, also need to remember a lot of the buffs and abilities are like on off in this army, and so like you can't treat every unit like it's subject to both of the elemental winds at all times, or you can't treat the dragon like it's also a level 4 caster when you want it to do dragon stuff, which we'll get into when we get to the dragon.
Yeah.
So like it's this weird like yes, there's a lot of very powerful things, but you can't necessarily have all of them at once in the way that kind of a cursory reading of these rules would lead you to believe.
Yeah, you're right. And another thing, Ryan, is like there's a hell of a lot of rules that impact leadership and all kinds of morale rules and all kinds of like psychological states in this book, but that may or may not come up in any of your games, and that turn out to be quite situational. So especially when you combine them with like a super high leadership across the board. So like there's a lot of rules wording that will not come into play in any given game either, which is just like looks like fluff when you're sort of reading it, but when you get to the table. So okay. Let's talk about just quickly how we're going to structure this review, because there's a lot of stuff to get through. So we're going to be talking first of all about the army composition and its rules. Then we'll be talking about how Cathay and Dragons work. We'll be going through all of the unit entries. Then we'll be doing the armory items, like general items, as well as the magic items. And we'll finish off with the lores of Yin and Yang. So let's start with army composition and rules. We're going to look at the army special rules first. We'll be doing them individually here. So the first rule to come up is Celestial Forged Armor. So Celestial Forged Armor, a model with this special rule has a ward save against any wounds suffered. The armor value of this ward save is shown in brackets. In addition, a wizard with a special rule may wear armor without penalty. So basically, this is Chaos Armor. It's exactly the same thing as Chaos Armor. This is a very good rule, and it's going to come into play every single game. Tougher wizards is in particular is good, but I think the best or the most useful sort of thing that you get out of this rule is you don't have to spend points out of your magic allocation on your combat characters to buy them ward saves. Because you were going to be doing that if they're doing any kind of serious combat, so it just frees you up to use the entire allocation of 100 points of magic items or what have you. So yeah, it's a good rule. I really enjoy it in my armies, and it's going to for sure come into play every game. Andrew.
Yeah, you covered it. Like anytime you don't have to spend out of your magic allotment for a ward save, like that's always a huge bonus. And yeah, tankier wizards, that's cool, I guess.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. not much else to say.
Yeah,
Ryan.
not much. It's pretty straightforward rule, right? So
yeah.
Chaos Armor was great on Chaos Warriors. It's great on Beastmen. It's also great on Cathayan Wizard Generals. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're all for it. Andrew, you want to take Mastery of the Elemental Winds?
Yeah. Once per turn, a wizard within your army that has this special rule, and that is within 6 inches of one or more friendly wizards that also have this special rule, may apply a 1+ modifier to its casting roll. Note that this modifier to the result of the roll, it does not negate the roll of a natural double 1. This is pretty solid, getting your wizards to cast that one spell you really want to get off per turn at a +5, unless they change that. That's no one's ever going to say no to that. It does force you to kind of clump your wizards together, though, because the range is only 6 inches. That's not very big, especially if you're trying to, spread your force out across the table. So you might see like little sort of sorcerer coven units kind of hanging out. But it's a solid rule and people will use it.
Yeah. Ryan.
Yeah, like this is neat, and I actually kind of like. We'll get to the lores of magic later, but like I kind of like how this almost encourages you to bring like one yin and one yang wizard, keep them near each other. Again, like it goes into that. It has like knock-on effects of theminess if you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
So
awesome. For my part, like it's a good rule. It'll come up every game / every turn. I think it pushes your magic a little bit further on its own, but it's not as good as the real dominant magical armies in the game. Like having a +1 to one of your casts a turn is not like mortuary cults or beastmen or high elves or warriors of chaos level casting, but it does get you a little bit further. I mean, like it's not as good as a Lilius Blessing, for instance, that the high elves would get. So like it's a small little bonus. It helps push up, as Andrew said, the one spell that you want to get off for sure, but it's certainly not a game changer from my perspective. It does stack with other stuff we'll talk about later, but I think on its own, it's not a game changer. Ryan,
and
Will of the... sorry, yeah.
One thing to note, it's a casting attempt, not per wizard.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, you're correct.
So it's not like you can spam this out and have like everyone doing it. It's one wizard that can do it per turn.
Yeah, and you may very well waste it on a spell that you're gonna succeed at regardless, right? Like you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I got to use my +5 on this, and then you roll boxcars, and it doesn't matter at all,
Yeah.
right?
Or you
Um,
miscast. Yeah.
Yeah, or you miscast.
But that's it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, no, because like Lilia's Blessing, for instance, is like you've seen that you've failed the roll, and now you roll it again, right? Like that's
Sure.
just straight up better. Yeah. Okay, Ryan. Will of the Dragons.
Yes. So, a unit with this special rule can re-roll a failed panic test when a friendly unit is destroyed within 6 inches of it, or when it is fled through by a friendly unit. So, it's like a shittier version of knights ignoring peasants, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah, like cool. Getting to re-roll a thing is great. But it's also only like super relevant if you're not near your BSB.
Yeah.
Who's probably going to be in the unit that has, or like the handful of units that have the Will of the Dragons rule in your army.
Yeah.
So like it's cool. I like it. It's not adding a shit ton of utility, and I think that's the perfect amount of like an army wide special rule should do something, but not, make or break the game, and that's what this rule does. So I'm kind of happy.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't make or break the game. Yeah, I think it's a fine rule. Like I'm happy to have it as like a sort of insurance policy. But I doubt it's going to come into play a ton. I mean, this army has really high leadership and is decently resilient in the first place. So you probably aren't taking a ton of panic tests for destroyed units or being run through or whatever. But at least you're not, and the ones and then you're not filling very many. But at least you get to re-roll them if you do fill them. So, yeah, nice little insurance policy. But much like an insurance policy, I don't think it comes up very often. Andrew.
Yeah, like it's neat, but realistically, if the unit is destroyed, how bad of a place is your whole army in to begin with? Like, I don't know. The
Yeah,
amount of times
especially with
that
no chaff. Yeah,
yeah, like the amount of times this comes up in my games, having to roll for a unit being destroyed close by or being panicked through is like slim to none. Because I'm usually, by the time we're all stuck in, I'm spread out a bit, or I've set up positions where I'm going to be winning the combats anyway, just because of I matched up properly or whatever. Like it's very rare that I've ever had to roll that panic for a unit getting destroyed nearby. And again, as an elf player who doesn't use the BSB but has high leadership and anything on everything, like I usually just pass anyway.
yeah,
The few
yeah.
times it has come up, so it's such like it's cool, but like I doubt very much it's gonna come up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So cool, but not often is what we're settling on.
Yeah.
Okay. The last one is the elemental winds. So during each of their start of turn subphases, the Grand Cathay player rolls a d6 to determine which of the elemental winds is blowing the strongest. So on a roll of a 1 to 3, the winds of Yang are the strongest, and what that gives you is until the next start of turn, wizards who know spells from the lore of Yang increase their dispel range and the range of any enchantments they know by 3. In addition, any friendly models with the Will of the Dragons special rule gain one of the following modifiers, so +1 movement and initiative. If you, however, roll a 4+, it's the winds of Yin, that are the strongest. And if that's the case, until the next start of turn, wizards that have the lore of Yin special rule increase the range of any hex or magic missile spells that they know by 3 inches. In addition, any models that have the Will of the Dragon special rule gain one of the following modifiers. That's weapon skill or leadership. So yeah, it's just so everybody's aware. The Will of the Dragons rule sort of is on all the characters and infantry and cavalry models, but it's not on the rest of the other stuff. Is I think how it usually boils down. I think this is a nice, good thematic rule. I really like that it builds into this sort of yin and yang aspect, cultural aspect that we've got going on here with Grand Cathay. But it's not reliable as far as I'm concerned to build your entire army around, because you're half the time you don't get what you're necessarily looking for. However, it's going to come into play often because Will of the Dragons is pretty widespread across the army. I think the buff to the spells are fine. I'm good with that. The stat buffs are also okay, but I'm gonna say you probably have more than enough leadership already, so you're not gonna pick that one. Your weapon skill is probably higher than your opponent anyways, and the way that weapon skills work in this game, it's not really gonna matter much if you take another one. +1 initiative doesn't usually really move the needle. +1 movement is always nice to get, but you're only getting it half the time, and on its own, it's not like a ridiculous power level type thing. But it is nice. So I think there are nice little thematic rules that you can get, potentially more useful on the casters. But yeah, I'm happy to have this. Andrew.
Yeah, it's cool. It really reminds me of the old 8th Ed Winds of Chaos rule for demons, where you kind of had to roll at the beginning of every round and it had effects, or it'd start killing random shit on the board, which is hilarious. So this is kind of in that same sort of mindset. It's neat, but like you said, the units that actually get to benefit from this really, those the buffs they get are kind of like nothing burgers. It's yeah, cool, it's nice to have +1 of these things, but really it's not gonna all of a sudden turn them into some crazy beast. Um, Probably the movement one is the best out of all of them, but once you're in combat, that doesn't help you. I don't know. It's cool, but I don't think it's gonna be super fucking impactful. The only thing I'm gonna say is it's gonna be a logistical nightmare to remember all this shit. You're gonna have tokens everywhere or something.
Yeah.
Because
I hope there's a card for this.
Yeah. Yeah, like a double-sided card. Yeah.
There is no card coming for this. Someone's gonna have to make their own.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Like a double-sided card that you just flip around for which elemental wind would be great, I think. But you'll need a lot of tokens for sure. Yeah. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so this is in the weird space of I absolutely love this as a thematic rule, but I also hate in-game administration, which means that I hate it. Because at this point, now you're learning your units' stats, and then every turn you have to remember, oh, I'm movement 5 now. So I don't like that. I do like how this dovetails with the Mastery of Elemental Winds, and again, you almost want one of each type of wizard, so that your one of your 2 wizards is always getting a benefit every turn. So I think that's kind of neat. But again, from a thematic rules writing perspective, this is very cool. But at the same time, there's nothing worse than going, I planned my turn based on being movement 5, being movement 8.
Yeah.
And then instead your weapon skill 5, and you're like, oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Sweet, nothing's in combat this turn. Yeah.
And I'm sure down the road we'll probably see something that lets you fuck around with these rolls or something.
Yeah.
But currently there isn't anything, and that's it's just a little bit too random for my taste. But I also again, I'm going to keep I'm stuck in a bit of a loop, but I like it thematically. I don't like it mechanically,
Sure.
which is weird.
No, that makes sense. And I think one thing, just to stress the admin point that you made, Ryan, is I think if you've got 10 or 12 units in your army that benefit from this rule, and then you go, okay, so this turn it's going to be the Wind of Yan or whatever, and then you're like, okay, this one's going to be +1 weapon skill, this one's going to be +1 initiative, let me get my tokens, this one's going to be +1 initiative. Like, it really slows down the game also.
Yeah.
And then good luck remembering it, you know?
Yeah, because I'm thinking as an opponent, right? And it's like, okay, yes, it's your job as the Cathay player to clearly identify all of these things, but it does also create a small burden on the other player to like know and remember what's happening on the table.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's just going to create a shit ton of tokens. And like I have a ton of tokens for my Bretonians because I need to remember, do I still have first charge? Do I still have stubborn? Like blah blah blah. This is a lot.
Yeah, and it changes all the time. It's not a once a game. You're doing this every turn on most of your units, right? So.
Yep.
Okay. So enough on these rules. Let's talk army composition. Ryan, you want to run us through what the composition list is like?
Of course. Let me just make it bigger so it's legible. Here we go. So up to 50% of your army can be spent on 0-1 Cathay and Dragon per 1,000 points. 0-1 Shugengan Lord or Lord Magistrate per 1,000 points. And then as many Shugengans, Gate Masters, Gatekeepers, and Strategists as you'd like. Your core can be at least 20, or must be at least 25% of your army. And it consists of Jade Warriors and 0-1 units of Jade Lancers per 1,000 points. Special, up to 50% of your army may be spent on Jade Lancers. 0-3 War Machines from the following list per 1,000 points. Fire Rain Rocket Batteries or Cathayan Grand Cannons. If your general is a Shugengan Lord or a Shugengan, you can take 0-1 Cathayan Sentinel as a special choice. If your general is a Lord Magistrate or a Strategist, you can take 0-1 Sky Lantern as a special choice. Otherwise, in rare, up to 25% of your army's value can be spent on Sky Lanterns and Cathayan Sentinels. Up to 20% of your army can be spent on mercenaries. There's only 2. Okay. And up to 25% of your army's points value can be spent on allied contingents coming from a single grand army from the following lists. Any Empire of Grand Cathay Army of Infamy, which has yet to exist. Or the following Dwarfen Mountain Holds, Empire of Man, good to go. Kingdom of Bretonia, suspicious. Wood Elf Realms, also suspicious. High Elf Realms, not suspicious.
They can't trust
then,
the hippies and the French.
Sus. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't trust them, but we trust dwarves, famously known for not having a giant chaos outpost cafe adjacent.
Yes.
And anyway, your battle standard bearer for 25 points can be a gatekeeper. And in addition, Dwarfen Mountain Holds, Empire of Man, Kingdom of Bretonia Grand Armies can all include allied contingents drawn from Cathay. And then there's like more text that's cut off under that, but I don't know what it said. So overall, that like I'm not going to continue beating the horse to death. That like the army composition list is very restrictive because you only have 6 units that aren't characters. So yeah, it is what it is. You know, you can fit in a weird combination of Shugengan characters and Dragon Lord, and I do kind of like that. Like, I guess thematically speaking, like all of their dragons will be characters. Will be like named characters, I guess.
Yeah.
There will never be really a generic Cathayan dragon. It's kind of cool.
Yep.
And yeah, for those of you who heard my brain break down when I got to mercenaries, I was like, sweet, I could spend 20% of my army on bone grinder giants and
Badland ogres.
ogre bolts, and that's it.
Yeah.
I imagine an FAQ is going to do something like allow Doom Seekers or some crap, but
Sure.
yeah. No, anyway, it's a very limited army by what is available to it. But like if you want to do 3 Sentinels, you can do 3 Sentinels. If you want to do an obscene number of lanterns that cost nearly $200 each, you can do that. Um, you can take a lot of Jade Lancers for some reason. But I also like I also like the fact that the quote unquote good factions of the old world can take an allied contingent. And I know a lot of places other than us don't really, encourage or allow allies, but you could certainly do something neat with like a I don't know, I haven't thought this far
Yeah.
ahead, but I'm sure you could
Great.
do something neat
Yeah. Great
with a
cannons and wood
little.
elves. Yeah.
You couldn't because that's the 0 to 3 per 1,000 means you can't take them.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. So if you took allies, it would be like a Shugengen, a Gate Master, a Gatekeeper, a Strategist.
And some
You'd be
lancers.
forced to
Yeah.
take. No, you'd be forced to take Jade Warriors.
So okay, you're not doing that.
Yeah,
Is the short
yeah,
answer.
exactly. Like again, thematically, if you were doing it for fun, you could make a little 500 point Jade Warrior, Gatekeepers, and Sky Lantern or some shit. I don't know.
In your
But
Null army. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I was trying to say Sentinel and I realized the math didn't work out on a 230 point fucking
Sure.
model.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
it's very restrictive because there's not a lot of options. I don't know how many different ways I can say that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to say it one different way here. In that, like, the lack of options really shows when you're trying to build a list. There's not a million choices you can actually make when you start building your list. Like, if you look at how the points work out, you're either doing a dragon and a longma, or double longmas, or maybe one and some baby longmas or whatever. Jade warriors and lancers, you're forced to take. Basically, you're forced to take warriors, and you're probably going to take a unit of lancers or maybe 2 units of warriors. I don't know, but there's not a million choices in core. And then, once you have those 2 bits and 2 or 3 cannons, the army is basically set. And I don't think there are a ton of other viable builds in this army. So yeah, like I guess my main issue is you're probably, if you're playing Cathay right now, or you're going to be over the next few weeks and months, you're probably going to find that your lists all sort of end up looking quite similar. But hopefully that will change. Well, it will change in about 6 months. So there's that. The other thing, which I think is a miss here, is the designers knew that there'd be a limited unit pool for this first stretch, and then they opted to not give them any mercenary options. Like, the lore was all set up for this to work because Cathay is being, ostensibly sent to the old world as an expeditionary force heading to like Marienburg or Westerland or what have you. So why not give them a bunch of Empire or maybe, I don't know, Bretonnian units as mercenaries, just to flush things out a little bit for a while the army sort of gets stood up. It would have been narratively sort of the perfect way to introduce them and give them a little bit of support because to help with the limited aspect of the roster. So, anyways, I don't feel like you're going to have a ton of meaningful choices to make here. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
I think you guys covered most of it. Maybe the mercenary thing though might have to do with the rumored next army coming out though, which is probably going to be all mercenaries, and
Sure.
that'll help shore it up a bit. But I have no idea.
Yeah, but by that point, the second half of the Cathay book will already be out, right?
Do you think?
Yeah, that's what I've heard, but we'll see. We'll see.
So
If it's the other way around, then fine. Yeah.
the next AJ after this will just be the other Cathay book, is what you're saying.
Well, in 6 months, there may be something in between, but what I've heard is that definitely Talea is in 2026, not in the second half of 2025.
Lame. All right, well, there you go.
I would be so happy to be proven wrong, though. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And did you have anything else on this, Andrew?
No, you guys basically covered it all.
Okay.
Super limited.
Yeah. Okay. So just before we close this section out, Andrew, any last minute thoughts on your end on how like army composition and the army rules all come together to sort of impact the army and your play style?
No, in fact, it feels really scattershot, the rules and how you're gonna make them sing in like sort of a cohesive army. Um, being forced to take like Jade Warriors and stuff like.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna struggle to get everything to sort of mesh together and work in the list as it is right now. It really needs some more sort of cheaper units, some more chaffy type things, and
Yeah.
this army just doesn't have those right now. So, right now you're just kind of dumping all your points on really expensive characters and
Yeah.
your special and rare units. Sure, Jade Warriors are fairly cheap, I guess, but at the same time, like they're not going to be winning you games. It's going to be all those other components you strap around them. And it just right now it feels very disjointed with itself.
Agreed. Yeah, fully agreed. And there's like some pretty key roles that are missing here. Like we've mentioned the no ranged missile infantry at all, which is, which is true, but there's zero skirmishers also in this army. Like not a single skirmishing thing unless you run like, I don't know, a gate master on his lonesome. So yeah, that's also an important movement and tech piece that is totally missing in that army. But yeah,
Some people
Ryan,
would call that a feature, not a bug.
sure. If
But
I'll
they're,
tell you
but
what.
they're wrong.
If
Those people are wrong.
if it sticks, Ryan, if they stick to it in book 2 and potential wave 3, then I'll give you that. But I think it may just be these models were ready first.
Oh, I'm just fucking with you. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, Ryan, what's your take on how like this all comes together?
Well, yeah, you guys have hit like the majority of it. Like as I said at the start, it's a bunch of individual things that might be okay that don't cohesively come together into an army.
Yeah,
Um, and I personally don't find they represent the theme the Arcane Journal's like trying to sell. But that's a, kind of an aside. Um, yeah, no, like it's a lot of stuff, but I'm hard pressed to find a way to make an army out of it that's not just kind of like a meme like here's 4 cannons with ogres, a dragon, a Shugengen lord, and 1 sentinel and 500 points of core. Like,
yeah,
uh, which is unfortunate because when we start getting into the unit entries, like they seem to almost be a very defensive army, which will become evident as we go through like the abilities that things have.
hmm
Would be very interesting if they had some missile infantry that were detachments, and
hmm
then you could have Jade Warriors and missile infantry and take charges and like anyway like there's a whole play style I can envision, and they're just missing half the units to make it reality.
yeah, sure. Yeah, I won't belabor that point any more than I already have. Let's move on to the rules for how Cathayan dragons work. Ryan, you want to work us through those?
Yes, so um kind of key things here. So you've got the transformation of dragons. A Cathay dragon can adopt either a human or a dragon form. To represent this, you can choose which form they're in at the start of the game by deploying them as either a dragon or a human. Each form has its own profile of characteristics. Um, so, in their human form, the dragons of Grand Cathay are wise and beloved leaders. That's a lot of fluff text. While in human form, a Cathayan dragon follows all the rules for a character whose troop type is heavy infantry. Whereas in um, dragon form follows the rules for a behemoth. However, whilst in dragon form, they don't have the inspiring presence rule, even if they're your general. And then we get the transformation mechanic, which is interesting. So what happens is, in addition to the So a Cathayan dragon may transform into their human form from their dragon form, or vice versa, during the command subphase of any of their turns. To do this, simply place the model representing the form the dragon has taken within 6 inches of the model representing the dragon's current form, not within 1 inches of friendly models, not within 3 inches of enemy models. Once the model representing the Cathayan dragon's new form has been placed, remove the model representing the previous form. When they transform, they recover D3 lost wounds. Cathayan dragon cannot declare a charge during a turn which is transformed, and counts as having moved for the purposes of shooting, but otherwise moves normally during the remaining move subphase. Note that when the Cathayan dragon transforms from human to dragon form in this way, they can immediately leave any combat they were part of, and that transforming allows the Cathayan dragon to leave combat. Any unit they were part of, and that transforming allows leave combat. Additionally, if the dragon form loses all of its wounds, they are forced into the human form and regen D3 wounds and can never turn into the dragon again. So that's just another piece of that. So this is a really interesting rule. There's some neat stuff you can do, and there's some things people are grossly misunderstanding about this. And there's also some ways that you can like trap the dragon and force it to die, which is a thing. So, I think is really cool and thematic that you have dragons that can like turn into people and whatnot. And when we get into Miao Ying, you'll see more of the like cool dichotomy of like, you can have a dragon that's level 2 or a wizard that's a level 4, but you can't have both. Because the command subphase is before the conjuration subphase. I think that sounds right.
Yeah, I think so.
So, like, it's not like you can like have your cake and eat it too. Like, you're either having a level 2 dragon that's doing dragon stuff, or a level 4 wizard that's doing wizard stuff. But anyway, with regards to these dragon rules, is ultimately you have a character that can either join a unit of infantry and buff them, and then when it's convenient to you, turn into a dragon and go murder people. Or you can have a dragon that, when it's convenient, turns into a wizard and does some stuff. But where I think a lot of people are making a mistaken assumption is there's a lot of people who have this idea that like, basically as soon as the dragon takes wounds, you're going to turn it back into a person, like a human, to regain some wounds. And I feel like there's kind of a tactical mistake that can happen there, where it's like, oh, I turned my dragon into a person, and then they like eat 2 cannon shots to the face and die.
Yeah.
Because if you die as the human form, you are dead. It's only if you die as the dragon form that you turn into a human and regain D3 lost wounds. Also, interestingly enough, the weird italicized text at the bottom here that says that the dragon transforms in their human form.
Yeah, it will immediately leave any unit it's part of.
Yeah. But the thing is that text only applies if you are a human turning into a dragon. So again, there's a bit of discourse I've seen online where people are talking about leaving combat by turning from dragon into human, and I'm not seeing that supported by this rule. As far as I can tell, it's only working one way, but I'm also going off of a shitty screenshot from YouTube. So,
You
it's
got
just
the screenshots. That's your fault.
Yeah.
no.
No, it's the yeah. anyways,
The
also the
choices
YouTube.
made
Yeah,
by the YouTube video impacted my ability to screenshot things, okay?
sure, sure.
Um,
Right.
but
Yeah,
ultimately, I guess what
yeah,
I'm saying is like this is a cool ability and it's a powerful ability, but I don't think it's like an abusable, continuously regain D3 wounds ability like a lot of people seem to believe it is. But I'll
yeah.
turn it over to you guys. So
Yeah, I yeah, I agree with you on a lot of things there, Ryan. So I think first of all, I like the rules for the transformation process in general. Like it doesn't appear to be too clunky or problematic in terms of rules interactions at first read. I think a lot of people are sort of transposing their wishes on how they're reading this thing right now, but that'll get sorted out over the next few weeks, I'm sure. I think there's a lot of stuff you could do with this rule if you're like a decent player in terms of like transforming to leave a bad combat if you're human. I'm not sure either if it applies the other way. It might or it might not. I'm not convinced right now, but certainly applies if you're human. Recover some wounds, all that kind of stuff. Transforming at the start of your turn for like so at the command subphase in order to then have a solid round of spell casting in the conjuration subphase as a human wizard. Like you can play, it just gives you a lot of options with your model with your piece that you can do. I think the wound recovery mechanic is not nearly as good as people seem to think it is. Because it locks you out of charging for a turn. So, at the end of the day, like dragons are meant to be in combat racking up points. And yeah, it's like a good insurance policy if you're somehow at like 1 wound or 2 wounds and you want to just stay alive to save the points. But I mean, it's at that point you're probably in a bit of trouble anyways. So I'm not sure how impactful like the wound recovery mechanic is going to be. Like because you're always going to be doing this mental math of, do I want my dragon to become a human and heal potentially a single wound if I roll a 1 or a 2, rather than charging into combat and killing stuff and missing out on 2 additional rounds of combat in my turn and their turn? So yeah, I mean that's yikes, that's not great. Obviously, shifting out of bad combats is really a strong ability, and we'll have to see if it works the other way. If it works where you can shift as a dragon into a human out of combat, I mean, that's also super powerful. Like, think of if your opponent's brought the Falconhorn, for instance, and then a monster slaying Duke charges you, and then you shapeshift as a human out of combat. Like, that is massively impactful. Let's say you survive that first round of combat that is there. But that could be very useful depending on how sort of we collectively decide to read that thing. But regardless, I think there's some fun things that you can do with these mechanics, and I like it, and I think it's a decently solid onboarding of like this complex interaction of changing from one model to another. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, like it's interesting and it's cool to have like sort of a wound recursion mechanic. But yeah, like you guys said, I don't think it's good, like this scary, powerful rule that everyone seems to make it seem. Um, it is very limiting on like how it can be used. And you touched on it, Kevin. Like when you transform, you can't charge that turn, so that's a huge loss of the combat potential of this unit. Because dragons want to be in combat. They need to be in combat, making up their points cost in your army. Otherwise, it's just a 400, or I think it's 450 in this army. Like points think that you're not getting every ounce of its points back in terms of winning your games. Um, so, missing out on a turn to charge is huge. And then potentially, if you're already in a bad spot on the table, like you're kind of just stuck potentially getting charged on your opponent's turn after that if you can't make use of that getting out of combat and finding somewhere to go. Like if you're getting out of combat as a dragon, you're probably already in a bad spot to begin with. Otherwise, you just stay in combat. Um, So, you're already on the back foot if you're going to be banking on this ability to like get your wounds back. And then again, like we covered before, if you really want to go human to get that level 4, like sure, but you're a huge target now and a lot easier to kill.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but it's not. I don't see it being like ridiculously OP. And you
Yeah.
need to play it smart. Like it's not like it's, oh, I just do this and I'm gonna never die and I'm invincible basically. It's like no, like you can get fucked pretty easily with this rule. You need to be very smart with how you apply it and when to apply it in your games.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because it adds up really quickly too, right? Like the first turn, you're unlikely to be in combat, and then if you transform twice, that's 2 more turns. So you're looking at half the game where that thing is not contributing any points. So I mean, that really adds up fast. And I think realistically, what you're going to end up seeing is most people will have the dragon in dragon form basically the entire game, and then when it gets really low on wounds or when something bad happens, it'll transform into a human. So it's like an insurance policy more than an actual you're shifting back and forth throughout the game type thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe like the first 2 turns you might be human just so you have a level 4 kicking off, but then once, combats are potentially about to happen, that's when you kind of transform and get ready for it.
Yeah, but then you can't charge that turn. So like let's say it takes 2 turns for your
Sure.
opponent to get to you, then you're like losing turn 3 also, so it's not ideal. Yeah.
Right, but like that's kind of the point I was making before. It's just like, you're you got to know when to use it and when to use
Yeah,
it right.
yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah, it's
I
possible
think
to
it's
screw yourself.
yeah, I think it's going to be very easy, and a lot of people are going to fuck themselves over um, by transforming at inopportune times.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so let's move on to the units here. And that last discussion was super on point because the first unit we're going to be covering is the dragon. So Miao Ying is a 485 point special character. So the stat line is solid on this. So in human form, you have a movement 4, weapon skill 7, ballistic skill 5, strength and toughness 4, wounds 7, initiative 7, 4 attacks, leadership 10, wizard essentially. And then in dragon form, this is a very good dragon. I think it's the highest base stats on a dragon in the game potentially right now, or anyways, it's not far. So it's a weapon skill 8, strength 7, T6, 7 wounds, initiative 6, and 6 attacks dragon. So we've already mentioned, Ryan mentioned it earlier. Miao Ying counts as heavy infantry when she's in the human form, and a behemoth when she's a dragon, obviously. She's armed with Talons of the Storm. Talons of the Storm in both her forms, essentially. Also, she in dragon form, she has draconic scales, which count as full plate armor. In her human form, she's a level 4 wizard. In her dragon form, she's only a level 2 wizard. And she can only cast the number of spells equal to her level of wizardry, obviously. So when she's, on the ground as a human, she could do 4 spells, 2 otherwise. She knows spells from the lores of battle magic, elementalism, high magic, as well as the 2 Cathay lores. She has a 5-up ward save through Celestial Forged Armor, Disdain of Dragons, which is a rule we'll cover in a minute. She's got Hatred, Warriors of Chaos, and Demonic Models, so that's a decent little bonus there. Magic Resist 1. She's got Mastery of the Storm Winds, Mastery of the Elemental Winds. She's Stubborn, the Supreme Matriarch of Nangao, which I'll cover in a second. She can transform into a dragon, all the rules we discussed there a few minutes ago. She has Will of the Dragons, which is rerolling the panic tests, and Wrath of the Storm. So in addition, when she's human, she gets Rallying Cry, and then when she's a dragon, she's Fly 9. She's a large target, has D6 Stomps, Swift Stride, and Terror. So a lot of stuff here. She gets a rule called Mastery of the Storm Winds, which basically allows her to discard up to 2 of her randomly generated spells rather than the usual 1. And when she does so, she may replace them with spells from the lore of Yang, or the lore of Ying, and the lore of Ying, sorry. The signature spell of her chosen lores of magic, or the following spell. So she's got a lot of options to swap out into. She has her own spell, which she can swap out through that rule. It's called the Storm Dragon's Fury. So it's a magic missile, casting value of 10, range 18. The target enemy suffers D3, 2d3 strength 5 hits with AP 3. These hits have flaming attacks, and once these hits have been resolved, the enemy must give ground. So basically, it's just a better wind blast, essentially, that she has access to, and then she could potentially also have wind blast after. So that's also nice. She's the supreme matriarch of Nangao, and that basically gives you that, in an army where she is, she must be the general. In addition, 0 to 1 units of Jade Warriors and 0 to 1 unit of Jade Lancers in her army can be upgraded to become Celestial Guard. Guard units for +1 model point per model. Celestial Dragon Guard units have +1 modifier to their weapon skill, their leadership, and gain a 6-up ward save, essentially. So just some good utility there. And then finally, she has a rule called Disdain of Dragons. A very nifty little rule where basically when enemy models wish to issue a challenge whilst they're within Miao Ying's command range of 18 inches, they must first make a leadership test using their own leadership. If the enemy model wishes to issue a challenge while they are engaged in combat with Miao Ying, or in a combat where Miao Ying, is also located, even if it's not her, they need to add 1 to the roll, the leadership roll, if she's in human form, and 2 to the leadership roll if she's in dragon form. So that was a ton of stuff there. What I'm going to say is, in the context of an army that does not currently have any really good hammers outside of her, I think you're going to see a lot of Miao Yings in Cathay armies. I think there's a lot of good utility and value that she brings to the table for 485 points. I mean, when I compare her to Galrock, which is another named dragon, at 465, like, it's clear that she's bringing way more value to the table than he is. But I'll say, she's not going to stand up to your really kitted out combat lords, like your Chaos Lord on Dragon with an Ogre Blade, that's making you strike last, and that is juiced up on the Gaze of the Gods. Like, she is not standing up to that guy. But nonetheless, like, a weapon skill 8, strength 7, 6 attacks is a real juicy profile in an army that's like looking for damage output. I mean, she's a strong spellcaster too, with all the rules that she's got to spellcasting, and like the potential pluses that you get just from army rules, but it's probably not going to come into play all that much because, as we mentioned earlier, she's probably going to be in dragon form for most of the game, and then she's just a level 2. And then, I mean, like, her value as a spellcaster is really reduced by that. Like, her Storm Dragon's Fury spell is really cool, like the second sort of better Wind Blast. But it's casting on a 10 plus, and if you're level 2, like, that's hard to hit even with a +2, and she'll probably be in combat anyways. Last two things. So firstly, like, the Supreme Matriarch of Nangao allows you to buff 2 units that you're basically forced to take in your army, right? So you're going to have at least 1 unit of Jade Warriors and potentially 1 unit of Jade Lancers at least. And then giving them +1 weapon skill, +1 leadership, and a 6-up ward across 2 units is just good value. Like, I would easily pay 2 points per model on those units for those 3, increases to characteristics. So, just from that alone, you're shaving off 30 to 50 points of her value right there for no cost. So I think that's another really solid rule and piece of utility. And then finally, Disdain for Dragons is a really fun little rule. I think it's going to come into play basically every game because, in my experience, when you have a dragon, it's either challenging something or it's getting challenged by something. So if you're able to impact that mechanic by having your challenges be unrefusable, because you can't, forgot to read it out, but you can't refuse her challenges, or limiting your opponent's ability to challenge you, like, it's just really good. Specifically for like unit champions and stuff that are just there to bog up dragons. So yeah, that was a ton of stuff, but I think you're going to see this model, especially in the current context of the army. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Miao Ying?
I think she's really cool. I think despite being only 30 points more than Orion, she does suffer from the like, what do you do with her? Like, you're paying for a dragon and a level 4 wizard, and you can never benefit from both at the same time.
Yep.
Um, which is an interesting tension to run into. And you're absolutely right. Most people are going to run them as a dragon, but then it's kind of a funny, like, a Chaos Lord on a dragon is 500 to 600 points
Yep.
and has 10 wounds.
Yep.
So, you're you're kind of a worse dragon,
Yep.
but with a lot of flexibility. Which is an interesting space to be in.
Yeah.
But you
It's
can
like a
also
full
do
toolbox, right? But like a
Yeah.
jack of all trades, master of none type situation.
And like the thing I really appreciate is you could have a matchup where being a level 4 wizard in a brick of Jade Warriors is more useful than being a dragon.
Yeah, sure.
And you have I don't know what that matchup is, but it could exist.
Tons of Monster Slayer,
But
Falcon Horn and Monster
like,
Slayer. Yeah.
like the flexibility is really cool. And then with the Winds of Magic, like you're guaranteed to either, be movement, like your dragons either to be movement 9 or weapon skill 9 at any given point in time. So like it's a really cool model for 485 points. It has a lot of options. It's gonna apply a lot of pressure. It's gonna let you upgrade some of those mandatory units you have to take. For clarity, you never actually have to take Jade Warriors. You could just take like 500 points worth of Jade Lancers if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you could.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. It's not 1+, it's just Jade Warriors. Yeah. You're correct.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just one of those, like, it is a strong model at 485 points. Absolutely. Especially in a universe where Orion costs 450 points.
And Galrak is 465. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that is a strong model. But I think you also nailed the point that, like, if this dragon goes into, the 600 point Chaos Lord dragon or the mid 500 points High Elf
High Elf.
dragon,
Yeah.
it dies.
Dark Elf, the Wood Elf dragon with all the debuffs in combat.
Yeah. And like, okay, cool. You lose 7 wounds and you regain D3 as a human. Sweet. Now you're a human model with 3 wounds, heavy armor, and a 5-up invul. Like, you die to a single cannon shot.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, on average, you're probably about as durable as a non-Nurgle Chaos Lord on a dragon. Like, maybe. Like, the math is a little funky there.
because it'll have regen 5-up almost always, right?
But that's what I'm saying, right? It's like you're less durable than that, or I guess you're as durable as a badly built Chaos Lord on a Chaos Dragon.
Sure.
Like it's fine. You're gonna do a lot of things, but like this dragon is definitely, like a duke with the virtue of heroism has a reasonable chance of soloing this fucking dragon.
Dumpstering it, yeah.
Because also, okay, cool, like, dragon dies, you turn into a human, and then you get pursued into and killed?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I actually don't know how that gets resolved.
Yeah, I guess it's more like if you get killed by that Chaos Lord on Dragon, and then you put your human model like out of its front arc, so it can't immediately charge you type situation. But yeah,
Absolutely, but for like to use the Duke killing
oh
you.
yeah, the Duke will fuck you up. Yeah.
Yeah, Like, anyway, it's like they're not bad, but they're not game-breakingly amazing. Is the point I'm trying to make here?
Yeah, exactly. I think people are overestimating its combat power for sure, and its recursion for sure. Andrew, what are your thoughts on Miao Ying?
She's all right. I don't know. You guys covered a lot of it. Um, when I see new dragon models, my first thought is to go, okay, how does it stack up to my dark elf master or dreadlord on a black dragon? It's like I'm pretty sure my dark elf dreadlord can take her pretty easily.
Yeah,
She's only sitting on a 4-up, 5-up, went in dragon form, and
yeah,
sure she hits like a truck, but my dark elf has a ton of defensive things. Not as
yeah,
good as like the whole like triple stack saves, but
yeah. But you
he's
got a
sitting
4-up
on
ward, and yeah,
4-up ward and -1 strength to the attacks coming in on me. So it's like, okay, it kind of evens the playing field here. And
yeah,
he's about the same points, I think, as her. I think mine's like 495 or 490 or something like that. Like they're pretty close in terms of points, but it's like my dark elf dragon character is going to do more for me in the game than her, just because sure she's super powerful, but if you have something that can get past that sort of toughness 6 stat check, like she's not that defensible. Um, and she's
yeah,
only sitting on 7 wounds. Like, sure, like once you get her down past the 7, she becomes a human. She potentially has 3 more, but her utility is very much reduced then. And again, like you guys said, it's when to use her as a level 4 or when to use her as a dragon. Like you're gonna be hard pressed to do that or like find those perfect times. And you lose, if this is your only level 4 in the army, having her in dragon form most of the time, which I think a lot of people are going to want to, just because outside of cannon shots, like she's the biggest, she's the heaviest hitter there.
yeah.
Um, you're gonna want her in that dragon form, so you're kind of losing that level 4 abilities. And if
Agreed.
she is ever like punched down back into human form, like you're probably already in a bad position to begin with. Having that level 4 now isn't probably going to save the day.
Yeah. No,
Um,
agreed.
so I like her because she's really cool, and I can see where you can get a lot of utility out of her. But again, it's not just like I took her, I'm gonna auto win this game. Like you really need to play smart to get the most out of all these abilities, because not all of them kind of mesh together to begin with.
Agreed.
Um, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
She's
agreed.
interesting for sure.
Yeah, and not as tanky as you might initially think. I was thinking about it while you're talking, Andrew, but like the Doom Bowl I run in that Minotaur list, re-rolling with hatred and all that kind of stuff, like Strength 8 Ogre Blade may legitimately kill her before she has a chance to strike. Like there's
Yeah,
a
he'll wreck
strong
her.
statistically speaking, there's a strong chance she will never actually get to fight. So, and that's
I
just a
mean,
Doom Bowl.
she has strike first.
Yeah, but he gives you the
But
aura of strike last, right? So,
Oh,
yeah, he takes it
they
yeah,
away.
yeah. So, yeah. Anyways, all good. Let's move on. We've talked enough about her. Ryan, you want to do Shigengan Lords?
Of course. Um, so Shugengan Lords and to a lesser extent Shugengan Generals um, are all mounted on Great Spirit Langmas um, and are monstrous creatures and characters in a unit size of 1. So the Lord is Weapon Skill 6, Ballistic Skill 3, Strength 4, Toughness 5, 7 wounds, Initiative 6, 4 attacks, Leadership 9, 220 points. Shooting in Generals, Weapon Skill 5, Ballistic Skill 3, Strength 4, Toughness 5, Strength Wounds 6, Initiative 5, 3 attacks, Leadership 8, 145 points. And their Great Spirit Langmas are Movement 8, Weapon Skill 5, strength 5, initiative 4, 3 attacks. The Shugengen of either type comes armed default with a hand weapon, iron talons, which I'll cover in a second, and light armor. And the Great Spirit Longma has a crown of horns. So the iron talons, strength user, AP -1, strike first. Crown of horns, I don't have a fucking clue. It's cut off at the
I
end.
think it's from memory. I think it's also strength user AP1, but it also has armor bane 1. Yeah.
So it's okay. So it's worse than the claws on like things like a griffin and a hippogriff, but it's not
Yeah.
terrible.
I'm going from memory.
Yeah. So Shugengen Lord is a level 2 wizard. A Shugengen General is level 1. Every Shugengen knows spells from either battle magic, elementalism, illusion, or high magic. They can take a celestial blade, which we'll get to later, for 6 points, or a Cathayan lance, which we'll get to later, for 4 points. They can take a dragonfire pistol, cover later, for 4 points. They can replace their light armor with heavy armor for 4 points. They must choose either the lore of Yang or the lore of Yin, which again we'll cover later in the episode. And so the Shugengen Lord can be a level 3 for 30 points, or a level 4 for 60 points, and can take 100 points of magic items. And the Shugengen General can be a level 2 for 30 points and can take 50 points of magic items. Overall, both iterations of this are great. Like a Bretonian Duke on foot is 175 points.
Yeah.
And doesn't have, 7 wounds and whatnot. So 220 points to be effectively a Duke on a hippogriff. Actually, I think mathematically it's almost exactly a Duke on a hippogriff. Is fantastic. Like that's just a bargain without even being a level 2 wizard. Or like, because he's weapon skill 6, you can compare him to an Empire General or a Grandmaster or a General on a hippogriff. Like it's a very economical unit entry. It's got a lot of wounds. It's got an okay toughness. Because of the Shugengen. Sorry, I didn't cover the special rules. Sorry. So they have Armored Hide 2, Celestial Forged Armor 5+, Countercharge, Fear, Fly 9, Impact hits D3+1, Mastery of the Elemental Winds, Swift Stride, and Will of the Dragon. So you're looking at, if you take the heavy armor option, which you will take for 4 points, they have a 3-up armor, a 5-up ward save, countercharge, and fears, whatever. They got some impact hits. They got swift stride. Every turn, they're either upping their movement value or their weapon skill. Yeah. If they're their general, maybe making them leadership 10 might be worth it sometimes. I also don't know how the modifier to movement value interacts with fly.
I'm not sure either right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's an answer to that question. But also, they're movement 8, so even if you turn off fly, they still move 8.
Yeah.
Which is
And
only
then,
one less than they fly.
And
So
then surely
whatever.
9 with that upgrade, yeah.
Yeah, so fucking non-issue right there.
Yeah.
So ultimately, like, you have a guy with a 3-up, a 5-up, toughness 5, and 6 or 7 wounds depending on the type. Right off the bat. Iron Talons are strength user, AP -1, strike first. So, you're initiative 5 or 6, but you're striking initiative 10 regardless.
Mhm.
And you're a wizard. Like, it's just they just do everything. The obvious tension here is that, doing everything isn't always the most helpful. So, like, you're great at a lot of stuff, but you're not, you're still a little bit worse than a Chaos Lord, a little bit worse than a Duke, but you're better than an Empire General. You're better than an Elf Noble, etc.
Did you just say?
Noble, not Dreadlord or whatever.
All right.
I was say elves can get fucked. I don't, but I guess it's a very good, very economically priced for everything it brings to the table. Like, for
Yep.
if you give it nothing other than a celestial blade, heavy armor, and make it a level 4 wizard, you're 280 points, and you are better than almost every other character in the game in a generalist capacity.
Yep.
Like, you're not going to win a fight with a dragon, but you're going to outduel or otherwise just outvalue most every other character.
Yeah, agreed.
That's all.
Okay, Andrew, are you team Shugengan Lords?
Yeah, I think they're very good for their points cost. And being potentially your level 4 as a combat character. I'm just now trying to bring up the only character I can think of comparing it to, which would be a Chaos Sorcerer Lord.
Yeah,
Which has
yeah.
slightly
Sorcerer Lord would be
worse
better.
stat. Maybe
Yeah,
if you put it on like a Manticore, but a Sorcerer Lord's 195 points, less toughness, less weapon skill, less wounds, obviously, because it doesn't have the mount, only 3 attacks. So he's better than, I guess, the other sort of generalist caster who can also be potentially fighty.
sure.
So I think
Yeah,
this
but I
guy,
think between Marks and Gaze of the Gods, like he and the better mount, he sort of makes up for that. But yeah, it's
sure, and like
comparable in any case.
a lot of people will put like if you're going with the Sorcerer Chaos Lord, sits on a dragon, all of a sudden that fixes a lot of his issues.
Sure.
But it's also a huge points investment. So like for point, a naked Sorcerer Lord's 195. This guy's 30 points more, but gets way more. So yeah, like I think this guy's really good. I think he's probably a better choice than the dragon itself. Just because this one you can customize with, at least talking for the Shogun Lord, 100 points of magic items. They have some decent ones in here, plus the generics. You can make sure that the character you bring to the table does the things you need it to do, as opposed to just having sort of like this big wall of like random special rules that you kind of have to think about more. Like, at least this could be more concise on how you field him and how you use him. So yeah, I think this is a really good character. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I like the Lord on Spirit Longma a lot. I think it's a good support package for your army, and you're going to be seeing tons of these on the table. It also has access to basically the 3 best lores of magic in the game between battle magic, elementalism, and illusion. And I'm not convinced they're punchy enough to be your primary hammer unit. There's some meme builds you could do with special weapons and illusion stuff that maybe gets you there, but I think in general they're more suited to like a secondary hammer type of role. I think it's like a fairly survivable package too there. Like, actually it's quite a survivable package for a wizard between 7 wounds T5, 3+, 5+ base. I think that's really good. before you give it before you do anything crazy like giving it a regen save or whatever, which you can do. Also, not being a large target is really good news because it helps your survivability. Like dodging cannon shots it suddenly becomes a lot easier. That kind of stuff. I think in most armies you're probably going to see a Longma with Miao Ying together. But I'd be interested in seeing a build with a level 1 a level 4 Longma, Lord on Longma as like your caster guy, and then multiple level 1 generals, because there's like we'll get to it later, but an extremely common magic item that lets you give them all -1 to hit, and then so you have like your 3 little secondary hammers that are like -1 to hit, 3+5 up with 6 wounds. So that's quite a decent little package there. So yeah, and they're less than 200 points. So anyways, all that to say, Longmas look really good. I think you see them in every list. It's just, do you see 2 big Longmas, a big one and some baby Longmas, or do you see like Miao Ying and a Lord on Longma type situation? So, but yeah, I think this is a really, really good package. And one, probably the best unit in the book, I would say. Okay, let's move on. Andrew, you want to do magistrates?
Yeah. So there's 2 different magistrates, the Lord Magistrate and the Strategist. The Lord Magistrate is 65 points. He's movement 4, weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, toughness 3, wounds 3, initiative 4, attacks 2, leadership 9. Or you can take the baby guy, who is 40 points, movement 4, weapon skill, ballistic skill 4, strength toughness 3, 2 wounds, initiative 3, 1 attack, and leadership 9. They are just regular infantry. They come with hand weapons and shields. You can give them gunpowder bombs for 5 points, dragonfire bombs for 10 points. They can be in a sky lantern. Also, the Lord can purchase up to 100 points of magic items. The Strategist can take 50 points of magic items. They have special rules. Grand Strategist, which I'll cover in a second. Harmony of Stone and Steel, and Will of the Dragon. So with Grand Strategist, unless this character is fleeing, all units within their command range, except for your general, can use this character's leadership instead of their own. In addition, once per turn, a friendly unit that wins a round of combat while within this character's command range may choose to fall back in good order rather than making a follow-up or pursuit move. Harmony of Stone and Steel. Yeah. A unit joined by a character with a special rule may reroll any failed leadership test when attempting to reform after writing down a foe, when attempting to redirect a charge, or when making a restraint test. They are interesting. I really dig the Grand Strategist rule. And I guess it fits into like the theme where these guys are sort of like your what's the word? Like attaches to kings. Advisors. Advisors for the general of the army. So like that's really I like that rule because sometimes you push out too far in front of like sort of your main battle force, and like you take that combat that you're gonna win, but then all of a sudden you're kind of out of place. This is really cool to sort of like reform your battle lines to prepare for other turns after you win a combat. So yeah, I think that's super cool, and they're fairly cheap. Unfortunately, they can't be mounted except for the Sky Lantern. But,
yeah, except the balloon. Yeah.
But like it'd be neat to like have them in maybe like a unit of Lancers or something, on a horse at the very least. But I guess there's other characters that can fulfill that role. Yeah, I don't know. I dig them. They're cool little upgrade dudes for your army.
Sure. Yeah. For my part, I don't think the stat line is much to write home about. It's basically like a human stat line, except leadership 9 for 65 points is pretty good as far as the market rate goes. I'm not overly wowed by this guy. I mean, the ability that lets you use his leadership would be great, except that like you have high leadership and like a million associated rerolls coming out of like all your pockets in this army. So I'm not sure how often that's going to come into play. And then I like the idea of being able to win a combat into a fallback in good order, but I'm not sure how often that's going to come into play. Like I'd have to actually test it a little bit more. But I'll tell you what, if it does, like if the right situation arrives, I'll be super happy that you do have that kind of ability open to you. And I will say shout out to mounting him on a balloon. I think there's probably some absolute jank that you can do in there in terms of layering your 100 points of magic items on top of what the balloon does. I just haven't taken a ton of time to look at that of the potential combinations yet, but there's probably stuff there for sure. Ryan, what are your thoughts on magistrates?
Yeah, like I really love the grand strategist ability. Um, that fallback in good order again, especially once they maybe add future units to the army.
Yeah.
Be some other things to talk about. But depending on exactly how the second arcane journal pans out, I can totally see a strategist or Lord Magistrate in a Sky Lantern being almost an auto take in the fully fleshed out version of the army.
Sure.
Again, because you're also combining things like magic items and the balloon and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But I'll address that more when we get to magic items. But
Perfect.
realistically speaking, I'm not gonna lie, I just kind of want the grand strategist on foot, or the strategist on foot for my Nuln army as like a cool mercenary dude I can add it.
Sure.
Uh,
And he's a cool
but-
model too. Like, yeah.
oh, he's a sweet model. But yes, in the grand scheme of things, like you're taking a Shugengan Lord, then maybe a dragon, and then it gets debatable about the remaining characters.
Yeah.
So
And unfortunately he's in the same slot as the Shugengan Lord. So, if you take a second one, you're not taking the Lord Magistrate.
exactly.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to Gate Masters. So Gate Masters come in two varieties, like the Lord and the hero type character that's called a Gatekeeper. They got your basic-ish human stat line there with movement 4, weapon skill 7 for the Master and 6 for the Keeper. Both varieties are ballistic skill, strength, and toughness 4. 3 wounds for the Master, 2 for the Keeper. Initiative 4 on both of them, 3 attacks and 2 attacks respectively. And then leadership 9 on the Gate Master, leadership 8 on the Gatekeeper. The Gatekeeper is the guy who could be your BSB also in this army. The Gate Master is costed at 80 points with the Keeper at 45. They come with hand weapon, heavy armor, and shield, so a nice little 4-up to start. They can take Celestial Blades, which we'll cover in a few minutes, but basically give them +1 strength, always strikes first. AP1. They can have a Cathayan Lance if they're mounted. They can be mounted on a Cathayan Warhorse for 16 points. The Cathayan Warhorse, I won't cover it in much detail because basically just a horse, movement 7, strength 3, toughness 3, like your very, very stock standard horse there. The Gate Master can have 100 points of magic items, 50 obviously for the Gatekeeper. They have Harmony of Stone and Steel as a rule, so that's the one Andrew just covered that so that when your unit is joined by a character with this special rule, they may re-roll any failed leadership tests when attempting to reform after running down a foe, and then when attempting to redirect a charge or make a restraint test, they can also re-roll. So those are 3 impactful rolls, which is it's always really good to to be able to re-roll if you flub them. I'll say like that they've got decent stats for 80 points or 40 or 40 45 points, but they still are basic human foot characters, although like weapon skill 7 on a basic human foot character is nice. The Gatekeeper for 45 points is probably one of the cheapest BSBs around, and he's got okay stats, but I don't think you're going to see a ton of those BSBs just because the leadership's so high and you get all these other rerolls. But yeah, I don't have a ton to say about these guys except they're nice and cheap, and you can have a nice cheap BSB. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like they're decent for what they are. Like an 80-point character with almost the same profile as a Duke uh,
Yeah.
is hilarious.
Yeah. That BSB is Hobgoblin Con cost. Exactly. That's wild.
Yeah, and like he has the stat line of almost an Empire general.
Yeah.
Like these guys are cheaper than every equivalent character
Yeah.
that I can think of. Their rule, yeah, kind of so what? Like it's like a shittier version of veteran. It's like
Yeah, I guess.
super
Yeah.
specific. Um, but like again, I honestly think the only one out of the two that matters is the BSB. Like
Yeah.
no one's taking a gate master over any of the other characters.
Yeah. Over a fucking long my lord. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I see the gatekeeper getting some play by virtue of being a BSB.
Yeah.
But the other character options are so attractive that these are, unless you're making some kind of insanely thematic like Jade Warrior foot army.
Yeah. With sentinels and you're holding the wall there. Yeah. The bastion.
Exactly. Like you're not taking anything else.
Okay. Andrew, what are your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, I think you guys covered it. Like he's a decent BSB for sure. I don't see, because you're kind of spoiled for choice with the Longma guy. And even I don't know, I still rate the Magistrate pretty good.
Yeah.
Unless you're specifically looking for some sort of BSB character, I don't think you're going to see too many of these just because there's more ways you can be spending points. And again, like this army, we covered it at the beginning, like it's gonna be very points tight once you start adding things in. I'm not sure there's gonna be a lot of room for more of these sort of whimsical choices that you add in later on in
Yeah.
list building
This
when you're like, oh,
this
I got
is
a
not
couple points left over, I'll throw them
yeah,
in. You won't have a couple points left over. Is the
exactly. This
issue.
is not orcs
So
and goblins.
yeah, so like I think he's gonna have a really hard time place in the list unless you're specifically taking one of these guys for a reason. And even then, unless it's for a BSB, like there's other choices to take for sort of combat-y characters.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Ryan, you want to move on to a real banger, Jade Warriors?
Oh yes. Glorious.
Here we go.
So Jade Warriors are, God, I'm blind. Jade Warriors are movement 4, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 3, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack. The officer has 2, leadership 8, 8 points a model. They are heavy infantry. They're minimum unit 5. They come stocked with hand weapons and heavy armor. They are close order, detachment, regimental unit, Will of the Dragons, and then they also have defensive stance, which lets them reroll. They reroll. God.
Armor
Damn it.
saves of a natural 1 when they haven't moved.
There we go. Yes. They reroll armor saves of a natural 1 when they haven't moved. And then they can either take halberds or shields for free. They cannot have both. And you can take an officer, a standard bearer musician for 6 points each. The officer can take 25 points of magic items. They can have drilled for 1 point per model, stubborn for 2 points per model, and they can take all of these are 0 to 1 per 1,000. 0 to 1 per 1,000 can also take a magic banner up to 50 points. So, like, they look cute at 8 points a model, but once you give them stubborn and probably drilled, they cost the same as foot knights without the ward save. Like they're just, they're more expensive than veteran state troops or regular state troops. And again, unless something groundbreaking happens with the FAQ, a bunch of hand weapon and shield toughness 3, strength 3 infantry are a speed bump in this game. Even halberds, like,
Yeah.
So it's like I wish they did anything for me, but also there are regiment and a detachment that can only be regiment and detachment with each other.
Yeah, and no ranged options.
Like there's so many things missing to make them even interesting. And ultimately, right now, they just look like more expensive state troops that aren't actually any better than state troops. And then because there's no like special Cathay combat res banner or anything like that, the unit caps out at combat res static combat res 6, which is not what veteran state troops with the Griffin banner and a BSB or whatever can get to. So yeah, they don't do anything for me. Like they just read like bad foot knights, which is a unit that's already bad. Or like more expensive state troops, which is also a unit that's already bad. So I don't know what else I got to say here.
Yeah. Andrew, you wanna harp on these guys?
Yeah, they kind of suck. But for an 8-point model, I guess, maybe you shouldn't expect too much. They're your bog standard sort of rank and file for this army. If you want to go hordy with them, I guess go ahead, although that you're not going to get much out of them. Yeah, there's not in a game where at least the current state of the meta is a lot of fast moving cav and heavy hitting, monsters and dragons and shit. Like these guys just fail for the same reason that all the other infantry in this game kind of does too. There's nothing that really sets them apart that would make you go like, maybe I'll invest a little heavily into this unit. Like it's just not there. Again, hopefully the FAQ changes that a bit and these guys become a little bit more spicy. But right now it's just, yeah, they have some good rules, I guess, but they're not amazing. They're not gonna, change the meta in terms of how things are played, at least in this current iteration of the rules. So it's like, whatever. They're 8-point fucking foot soldiers that are gonna die just as quickly as every other, sub 10-point foot soldier.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So small correction on my part. Ryan, I said it's unless they move, they re-roll their ones with defensive stance, but it's actually unless they charged. But regardless, yeah,
I take that back. They're fucking amazing now.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. No. So yeah, I see people like fawning over these online, and I just don't see it. I think these guys are like, if I'm being very generous, meh, and probably bad in reality. I mean, sure, you can give them stubborn and drilled, and at that point, they're like, if I give you guys some comparisons, they're 1 point less than like my Infernal Guard and Chaos Dwarves, and those guys are strength and toughness 4 with way better options. Or they're the exact same cost stock at 8 points as like Berserkers and Wolves of the Sea, but those guys are are T4, come with a 6-up ward save. Can have flails. They're skirmishers. They have frenzy. Like, it's just, yeah. I mean, maybe they compare favorably to, like, I don't know, your peasants, your men at arms, or your state troops, I guess. But I don't
This
think
is
that's a
what I was
very high
getting at.
bar.
Like, this is what I was getting at, right? Is like, if you give them stubborn, they're 10 points a model.
Yeah.
With hand weapon and shield,
Yeah.
they're exactly the same as Bretonian exile foot knights, who are very bad.
Yeah. These guys are terrible, and I don't think they compare favorably unless you're comparing them to other terrible things, frankly. So yeah, I don't want to talk about them much more. I think there's not much to say here. Okay, Andrew, you want to cover another real banger, Jade Lancers?
Yeah. Jade Lancers, 20 points apiece. You need to take at least 5 in a unit. They are heavy cavalry. Their weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 3, strength toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack unless you take a sergeant who is 2 attacks. And he costs 6 points. They're on Cathay and war horses, same as every other war horse in the game, basically. They are equipped with hand weapon, Cathayan lances, which we will talk about later, heavy armor, and shields. You can take your full command. If you take a standard bearer, you can take up to 50 points of banner allotment, and the sergeant can take 50 points of magic items. That's actually pretty cool because a lot of times it's capped out at 25.
Yeah.
0 to 1 units per 1,000 points may be given ambushers for 1 point a model, drilled for 1 point a model, and stubborn for 2 points a model. Their special rules are Cathayan cataphracts, which I'll cover in a second. They are close order, countercharge. They have horde, swift stride, and will of the dragon. Cathayan cataphracts is when a unit in which the majority of the models have this special rule makes a assume charge move. The unit counts as having charge during the next turn. Nope, that would not make sense. The picture I have is cut off. I don't actually know what kind of move it has to make. Follow up. I think it's a follow up.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, if they follow up, it counts as charge.
Yeah, so that's spicy when they're rocking lances. They get to keep
True.
using those. But other than that, I mean, 20-point cav is pretty sweet. I forget how much shitty Bretonian cav costs, but as a dark elf
19
player,
points.
my cav are 38 points a model. So this seems pretty cheap for what you get. But again, they're just, weapon skill 4, strength toughness 3, humans on horses with lances. They will do stuff sometimes, and then usually just get their asses beat by anything, more elite. Again, dark elf fucking cold one knights, Bretonian, the fancier knights you can get, Chaos Warrior knights, like.
Well,
They're
Chaos
kind of just.
Knights are garbage. But yes.
Well, I'm thinking more like the chosen
The chosen, yeah, much better. Yeah.
But again, they're like super expensive. But I don't know. They're your typical cheapy knights. They're half decent. They're obviously better than the Jade Warriors, but not by much. You can give them some good special rules, which helps them out a bit, like the ambushers right away kind of sticks out to me. You might be able to do some kind of janky shit with that. But yeah, they're just kind of weak, shitty human knights.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually not a fan at all of Jade Lancers. I think they're bad, frankly. I think I see them kind of as worse Knights of the Realm, and those are not great, mainly because they have weaker lances. There's going to be strength +1 AP1 instead of strength +2 AP2, and they don't re-roll their ones on the charge. which is also just a nice little buff that you can get. Aside from that, I think they're generally comparable. But the thing that like people are talking about, oh yeah, but you get an extra attack from like the back rank, which fine. But the thing that people are not mentioning is that involves you doubling up on the number of models you're bringing in this not great unit. To get more strength 4 AP1 attacks, which frankly are just not great. And I can tell you that, if you're bringing 10 Jade Lancers in a unit, at a very minimum, if you don't give them a single upgrade, a single command, whatever, you're looking at a 200-point model, 200-point, unit. It's probably closer to 250 once you've applied all the extra things you're going to slap on here. And every game, I am going to collect these 250 points because those are easy points for your opponent to collect. Like, there's not enough survivability here. Like, and yeah, sure, you give them something like stubborn, but they lose a round of combat. Suddenly, they're fighting with hand weapons at strength 3. Yeah, sure, fight me all day with strength 3 hand weapons. I don't care. So yeah, I don't rate them at all. Actually, I think they're not very good. But as our resident cavalry expert, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, the weird problem that you've both kind of hit on is, and we haven't even gotten to the Cathayan lance is a bad lance.
Yeah.
But we'll deal with that later. So without upgrades, these guys are slightly more expensive than Knights Errant and cheaper than Empire Knights and Knights of the Realm. But once you give them Drilled and Stubborn, which you
will, yeah,
will do, they're more expensive than unupgraded Knights of the Realm, and only 1 point they're 1 point cheaper than Knights of the Realm at that point, but more expensive than unupgraded Empire Knights. But I will say it's been my experience that Strength 5 AP -2 doesn't do shit into like decent targets.
Yeah.
So having more attacks because of fight an extra rank at Strength 4 AP -1 is gonna do even less.
Yeah.
My 2 cents. Obviously, like, yes, there's certain math arguments that just rolling more dice is better. But at the same time, like, 6
Yeah, but
Knights of the Realm charges 10 Cathayan Jade Lancers. One, the Jade Lancers cost significantly more, and
yeah,
that fight is still kind of even between the two units.
yeah.
So like it's just a like I feel like the only way to use Jade Lancers is actually like spending a ton of points and investing to get that third rank, so that like trying to go for and they don't have first charge. Yeah, they don't have first charge, which is also fucking wild.
They're not great, I'm telling you.
No, they're not great, but like the only way I see them actually working is like if you use that 2 units per 1,000 points to basically make 250 point units of Jade Lancers so that you don't have to take Jade Warriors.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah. When your redeeming quality is you're better than the other shitty unit, that's not a fucking great place to start.
But like, yeah, I don't like they're not good. Like,
No.
you get a bunch. I'm trying to think of what they're good at fighting, and the only thing I can think of is like regular state troops or
Yeah,
something.
but everything
I
is
give
good at
up.
fighting that. Yeah.
Fuck up
Yeah.
a goblin.
Yeah. But well,
No, they got like some
yeah.
fucking fanatics
Yeah.
wreck that unit.
Yeah. 60 poison shots on stand and shoot when they're coming in. There's nothing. Anyways, Sure, let's move on from these guys. We've given them too much airtime already. Okay, so speaking of an actually good unit now, just to shift gears, the Cathayan Grand Cannon. So the Grand Cannon is 130 points, so more expensive than a lot of other cannons. It has, your crew has basic human stats of 3s essentially across the board. The Grand Cannon may be upgraded for 35 points with an Ogre Loader, which is an additional model I'll cover in a second. The cannon shoots at 48 inches. It is strength 10, so on the upper end of cannon strength, well, maximum strength actually. AP3. It has Armor Bane 3, so if you roll that 6, nothing is getting an armor save. The cannon fire rules, obviously, it's cumbersome, move or shoot. It's multiple wounds, D3 plus 1. So again, good cannon wounds, not dwarf cannon wounds. And it has thunderous impact, which I will cover in a second. Thunderous impact, basically until your next start of turn subphase, any unit, friend or foe, which can lead to some funny situations, that was within 2d6 of the strike point when a Cathayan Grand Cannon shoots, suffers a -1 modifier to its movement and cannot use the Swift Stride special rule. Additionally, you can give these guys an Ogre Artillery crew member for 35 points. That's basically just Ogre stats, weapon skill 3, strength 4, toughness 4, etc. It comes with hand weapon and light armor, and it may take gunpowder bombs for 8 points, which are just little grenades, which we'll talk about later. It also comes with the rule enough for everyone, so it gives gunpowder bombs to the crew of the War Machine that the Ogre Loader has joined, so that's great. Everybody gets to fire grenades when you get charged on stand and shoot, so fun. And then in terms of mercenary crew, the Ogre does a really fun thing where basically it allows your unit to it allows the cannon for 1 turn to fire twice, which is really, really solid, obviously. So I like the Cathayan Grand Cannon. I think it's an excellent artillery piece. It combines the best aspects of cannons with a fun thunderous impact rule that it's stolen from Chaos Dwarfs. You're going to see this as a recurring theme in the artillery here, for sure. I think the grenades are fine; they're fun, whatever. But shooting twice is really, really good because, like, you won't get 6 turns of shooting out of a cannon typically. So that one turn where you need them to really, I don't know, damage a dragon or something, and you have your 3 cannons shoot twice, 3 or 4 cannons or 2 or what have you shoot twice. That's really going to have a pretty significant impact. And cannons in general are just amazing. So being able to take several of these, because they're 3 per 1,000 points, is spicy. Although those points will really, really start to stack up. I think that you're going to see this in a ton of lists. It's a really good piece, and I think after the Longma, it's probably the second best piece in the game. You're going to get a lot of in this army. Sorry, you're going to get a lot of utility out of shutting down Swift Stride and shutting down the movement. As far as I can tell, you can stack these to reduce movement by more than 1 if you fire multiple cannons. So unless I'm reading this wrong, if you're firing your 3 cannons 2 times, you can have that cavalry unit down to movement, I don't know, 2 or 3 or something, which is pretty funny. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good piece. Any thoughts on this one, Ryan?
Yeah, it's a great unit. Like, for 5 points more than an Empire Great Cannon, you get better AP and thunderous impact. So,
And shooting
and
twice.
so that's 40 points more. But
Sure.
Yeah,
the point is that before you even get to adding the Ogre Loader, you're already a better cannon for 5 points. Toss in the Ogre Loader, which you're gonna do. Because honestly, like, I've seen people talking about taking 6 of these.
No.
I honestly think 3 with Ogre Loaders is
more than enough. Yeah.
It's gonna do what you need while leaving you points to take other shit.
Yeah.
Because like, there's a certain point where that the -1 move modifier doesn't matter anymore when they get closer to you. So it's a benefit that matters in the early stages of the game. But yeah, no, like it's an amazing piece of kit that's probably about 20% cheaper than it should be.
Yeah.
And yeah, shooting twice is absurd.
It's good.
Especially like, because this is the thing, right? Is like, well, I'll just address it now, but like, there's people talking about skew armies, and yeah, you can do stupid things like spend 990 points on cannons, and on turn 1 of the game, fire 12 cannon shots, and collectively reduce the enemy's movement by 12 inches, spread out across their entire frontage.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Andrew, your thoughts on the cannon?
You guys covered most of it. The only thing I will touch on too is like once you add that ogre to the cannon, you're also taking away a lot of the weaknesses that sort of artillery pieces have, which is like, cool, I'm gonna throw like my chaff unit at it or some weird like skirmishing ambusher unit in behind enemy lines and then pick up the artillery pieces. But like once that ogre's there, like he 3 more wounds and he's actually like a decent fighter. Strength toughness 4 with 3 attacks. Like it really makes them a lot more tanky than the average artillery piece. That's on top of like just their offensive output as an artillery piece is just really awesome. Like, yeah, I think Kevin, you're right. This is probably the second best unit in this AJ for sure.
Okay. Let's keep going with, I guess, decent but not as good. Ryan, rain rocket batteries.
Fire Rain rocket batteries have the same stats and ogre option as the cannon, and also cost 130 points, with the ogre costing 35 points. So the rocket battery can fire with one of 2 profiles. The first profile being Bastion rockets, range 12 to 48, strength 4, 5 in the center, AP -1, -3 in the center, with Armor Bane 1, Bombardment, Cumbersome, Move and Shoot, multiple wounds D6, shoots like a stone thrower using the bombardment rules, 3-inch blast template, black powder misfire table. Multiple wounds D6 only applies to the thing in the middle of the template. The other option is to fire as a rocket battery, range 12 to 48, strength 3, 4 in the center, AP -1, -1 in the center, Armor Bane 1, Bombardment, Cumbersome, Flaming attacks, Move or Shoot, and Wailing Spirits, which I believe causes a panic check.
Yeah, as soon as you take a wound. Yeah.
Yeah. This one fires with the Bombardment special rule as a 5-inch blast template, using the black powder misfire table. So it's not nearly as good as the cannon. It's better than an Empire mortar.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, like, anyway, we were talking about this earlier, but it's just kind of, for 130 points, 165 points with an ogre loader, it's just kind of supremely mediocre. I personally think if the FAQ skews the game back towards ranked units of infantry in some way, that the rocket battery strength 3 AP -1 5-inch blast profile may have some utility. But at the end of the day, like, I will acknowledge that large blast template versus a cannon just shooting through a ranks of 4 to 5 dudes probably both do the same amount of damage to the unit. But in the grand scheme of, like, Chaos Dwarfs have similar things that aren't good, but this is definitely better than the Empire mortar or rocket battery. So it's kind of just in a weird medium place. That's it.
Yeah. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's like a shittier Death Shrieker rocket.
It's exactly what it is.
It's definitely way overshadowed by the cannon we just covered, which you make out of the same kit. And yeah, unless we see some changes, like Ryan had alluded to ranked infantry, or even just how templates hit units, I don't think this is. It's even the same points as the cannon. That's ridiculous.
It's yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's not great. I don't find there's nothing here that kind of wows you or would make you want to take it over the cannon if you're investing in artillery pieces.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I don't rate this at all. I don't think it will see much play. For 5 points less, you get a better version of this in Chaos Doors for the Death Shriekers. Like they get +1 strength on the good rocket. Fire Rain rockets cannot take an actual real engineer. They get 1 reroll, but it's not the same thing. And the panic test, like I've tried to make these rockets work in a lot, and it's meh. It doesn't work as well as you might think. Like, I fired this at units of goblins, and I got the pie plate to land just right, and I was feeling really good about myself because I had the chance of hitting 14 or 15 goblins. Then it became 7 after rolling the risk of being hit rule, which translates to 3 or 4 wounds, and then maybe I kill 3 goblins. And that feels really sad for a piece of artillery that you've invested, I don't know, with the Ogre Loader 165 points in, or whatever it is there. Of course, the Kastorf one doesn't get to shoot twice once a game, but nonetheless, it's not ideal. And then if you're trying to use the big multiple wounds 6 to kill a monster or something, you got to remember that's only under the little hole on the small pie plate. So you're the way it works out is a quarter of the time you're landing that hole basically where you want it to, and then you've got to wound what is usually a toughness 6 monster. So 1/3 of the time you're wounding it, and then you've got to get through its saves, and then after that you get to roll a nice d6, and you're going to be very disappointed when you roll a 1 or a 2, So, I don't rate these at all. I think they're not going to see play. They're competing for points against the Great Cannons, which are fantastic, and these guys are subpar. So, forget they exist. Andrew, Sky Lanterns.
Yeah, give me the big one, eh?
Yeah, this is a big one.
You're reading for 4 hours on this. Okay. Points are 135. They are a heavy chariot on a 100/100 base. They have armor save of 4+. The Sky Lantern itself is movement 1, strength 5, toughness 5 with 7 wounds. Then there's 4 lantern gunners. Their weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, initiative 3, 1 attack with leadership 8. And then there is a catter. He comes with it, right? Yes. He's weapon skill 3, ballistic skill 5, nice. Strength 3, initiative 3 with 2 attacks on leadership 8. The options. The lantern gunners and commanders must take one of the following: Sky Lantern Crane Gun for free, Iron Hail Gun, and gunpowder bombs for free, or an Iron Hail Gun and a Dragonfire Bomb for points. And then the Sky Lantern can take a bomb upgrade for another 15 points. For special rules, it has Close Order, Disengage, which we'll cover in a second. I have the Dragon, Feign Fight, Fire and Flee, Fly 8, Heavenly Beacon. Impact hits D3+1 on just the lantern. It's a large target. It has reserve move. It has scouts. and it is unbreakable. Eye of the Dragon is friendly models whose weapons shoot using the bombardment special rule can shoot using this model's line of sight rather than their own. That helps out with cannons and shit like that. Eye of the Dragon, friendly models whose weapons shoot using the bombardment special rule can... Oh, I just read that. Disengage. Should this model lose a round of combat, it must attempt to disengage by making a leadership test. If this test is passed, this model may fall back in good order rather than give ground. Enemy units can follow up as if this model has given ground, moving 2 inches directly towards this model but cannot pursue it. However, if this test has failed, this model is unable to disengage and must give ground as normal. In addition, should it win a round of combat, this model may choose to fall back in good order rather than making a follow-up or pursuit move. For Heavenly Beacon, unless this model is fleeing, friendly units within 12 inches of it may reroll any failed panic or rally tests. In addition, while this model is on the battlefield, unless it is fleeing, you may apply a +1 or -1 modifier to the result when rolling to determine if friendly unit with the ambusher special rule that is currently held in reserve arrives in turn as reinforcements or is delayed. Finally, a Lord Magistrate or Strategist mounted on the lantern has a command bubble. Sky Lantern Bombs. This model is equipped with Sky Lantern Bombs and may perform a bombing run attack. It's a single enemy unit that is not engaged in combat. To do so, this model must move within 6 inches of the unit it wishes to attack during the remaining move subphase. Once this model's movement is complete, roll on the bombing run table below. The bombing run table. The D6 chart on a 1. You get premature detonation. The releasing mechanism jams and the bomb explode prematurely. This model loses a single wound. On a 2, it's a dud. A solitary bomb is released but fails to detonate before landing upon the head of an unfortunate enemy. The enemy unit loses a single wound. Interestingly, it's loses and not suffers. So they just straight up take it. Direct hit. A cluster of bombs lands directly on target. Place a large blast template so that its central hole is directly over the center of the unit. Once placed, the template will scatter D6. Any model whose base lies underneath the template's final position risk being hit and suffering a strength 5 hit with an AP of 2. And then on a 5 of 6, you get bombs away. A cluster of bombs is released, falling over a wide area. Place 3 small blast templates so that their central hole is over the enemy. Each template will scatter D6. Any models whose base lies underneath the final position risk being hit and suffering a single strength. I'm not sure, it's cut off on the picture, with an AP of 2. I assume it's like strength 3.
Yep.
5
strength.
finally.
5.
Strength 5.
Yeah, it's strength 5.
That's juicy. Then the Iron Hail gun is a range 12, strength 3, AP 1 gun with move and shoot and multiple shots D3. Neat. A model armed with an Iron Hail gun suffers no negative firing using the multiple shots D3 special rule while making a stand and shoot action, charge reaction. And then finally the Crane gun, the sniper rifle. It is range 36, strength 6, AP 2, armor being 2, cumbersome, and then the rest is all cut off. But pretty good gun, especially on some ballistic skill 4 shooting, ballistic skill 5 shooting if you have the commander. And that is the slew of rules that this thing gets. I like it. 435 points, especially if you're going to be investing into rocket batteries for some reason. it's worth taking. It's your only chariot in this army, and gets all the benefits that a chariot gives you, even though it's maybe not super good in close combat. I think it's decent enough. You still have your 4-up armor save. You have a shit ton of wounds on this thing. Strength 5 impact hits, D3 plus 1 on a heavy chariot, so you get that AP2 with it. Not too bad, although you probably will be using it more for its shooting capabilities, and potentially if you're, for whatever reason, investing into ambushing lancers. That would be one reason to get out of this.
Sure.
I don't know. I think it's okay. Like, it's a 135-point chariot with 7 wounds. If you take it just for that reason, I still think it's pretty good. And then with all the other sort of, shooting you get out of this, plus the bombing runs, like, I think it's not the worst choice to put in your army. Definitely not the best in the AJ either.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, Ryan, you want to go next?
Yeah, so it's definitely got like interesting play in my head, like 5d3, fucking iron hail gun shots is not terrible, nor is 5 sky lantern crane guns. I'm not as sold on the bombs as other people, like, having dropping 2 small blast templates that then both scatter
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
as much of a possibility of doing literally nothing as it does anything else. Um, but I think part of the thing I'm skipping over here is, like, technically you can fly by a thing, shoot at it, drop a bomb on it, and also drop the other grenades, or whatever the fuck, gunpowder bombs,
Yeah.
dragon fire bombs.
And then reserve move out of dodge. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's certainly a versatile piece. And I'm not going to disagree with our local pain in the ass. Um, you can probably make an incredibly frustrating army that has like 5 of these and 4 plus cannons. I don't think it's better than the dwarf cannon organ gun gyrocopter army, but I think it's going to be annoying as fuck. If you were to do it. But honestly, looking at this, I know we haven't covered the Sentinels yet. I would probably only take this if I was building a Lord Magistrate into my army and spending a bunch of magic item points on that entity. I don't think I would take this as just a Sky Lantern unit.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I think it's best suited as a mount for the Magister. I think overall, I think it's a very interesting unit. It's not bad. I'm not entirely sold on this being like the most optimal choice for your points, but it's certainly playable. And like frankly, this thing has so many rules and so many different roles going for it that at first glance, it's tough to find and there's no comparables in the game, so it's tough to give you like exactly like how good it is on a point per point basis. But I will definitely go with it. It is certainly playable, especially with the character on it. I get the feeling that this thing is going to be very vulnerable because of its enormous base size and the fact that it's a large target and it's not super defensive. It's going to be very vulnerable to shooting. I mean, at least it's got 7 wounds. Great. I think the Eye of the Dragon rule is more or less useless because you're probably not taking rockets. Disengage is a fun little mechanic that you can use to screw with your opponent. I really, really like the design space of, you just get to a follow up, but I get a fall back in good order. And then so I'm out of combat, and you can really mess around with that kind of stuff. So I think it's a really fun rule. I don't know how impactful it'll be yet, but it is fun. I love just thematically in my head a fucking hot air balloon having AP2 impact hits by crashing into stuff is just like peak Warhammer. So I'm totally there for that. I think you have the potential to do a bunch of wacky stuff with a Magister and some with a Magister and some magic items on it. I still need to look at the exact combinations that I'd want to run. Does the Magister get like a celestial armor at all? He does not. But you can give it a regen save, and you can give him like the Talisman of Protection or whatever, and you can suddenly make this thing like a 4-up, 5-up, 5-up, which is really interesting. Maybe too many points invested in a balloon, but nonetheless, you can play around with this thing and do some interesting stuff. I think the Sky Lantern gun is basically a crappier bolt thrower on a similar, but a little bit less AP there, and certainly not multiple wounds too. On a at least it is ballistic skill 4, but nonetheless, on a 135 point balloon. So yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of stuff. I gave you a bunch of thoughts there. I'll need to check it out some more and think about this one more. But as a hot take, it is certainly playable, and it is an amazing model. Like I know a lot of people love the massive balloon aesthetic thing going on, and so yeah, sure, go for it. I don't know that you take tons of these in your army, but they are playable. Okay. So Ryan unfortunately had to leave us at this point. So I'm going to finish this off with Andrew. I'm going to take Cathayan Sentinels, which is our last unit here. So Cathayan Sentinels are 230 points. Weapon skill, movement 6, weapon skill 5, strength 6, toughness 6, 6 wounds. Initiative 3, 3 attacks, leadership 10 for 230. They come with a hand weapon, of course, as well as a Great Blade. The Great Blade is like a dual-use weapon. You can use it in the Scything Blow mode, which is a strength user, so that'll be strength 6, AP 2. It gets Armor Bane, 1 extra attacks plus 2d3, and strikes last. So this is like your horde killing mode, and then you can switch to Deadly Strike mode, which is strength plus 1, which will make it strength 7, which is a really important breakpoints for like your monsters, your dragons, that kind of stuff. AP 4. It has Killing Blow, Monster Slayer, and multiple wounds D3. So basically it becomes a Monster Slayer, Killing Blow, Ogre Blade, essentially. So yeah. Aside from that, you can upgrade the Sentinel, and it can become one of 5 different varieties of Sentinels, which I'll cover here in a minute. It can become a Terracotta, Jade, Obsidian, Granite, and Warpstone Sentinel. It comes with Close Order, obviously. It's immune to Psych, which is great. Unbreakable, Implacable, which I'll cover in a second. Obviously, a large target. It gets D3 plus 1 stomps. Has Terror and Timbers like a giant. Implacable, what that does is once per turn during a turn in which it was charged, this model may choose not to give ground should it lose a round of combat. In addition, once per game, this model may reroll its charge roll. So rerolling a charge roll on this kind of bad boy is super useful because he doesn't have Swift Stride or anything. So you want to make sure you do get into combat. And where this gets really interesting is with his 5 upgrades. So the first one is a Terracotta Sentinel. This one is actually free. And it'll come with a 6-up regen save. So it's going to be on a... sorry, what's his base armor value? Does he not have one? Should not be. Oh, heavy armor, sorry. So that'll be a 5-up, 6-up on this guy. He can become a Jade Sentinel, which is the second upgrade. Jade Sentinels are 20 points. A Jade Sentinel knows a single spell from either Battle Magic or Elementalism, and he can cast it as a bound spell, power level 3. So this basically makes it like Sisters of the Thorn, I guess, which is interesting. Interesting. I think you choose it though. It's not rolled. It's chosen by their controlling player before the army is deployed. So
Okay,
great. I guess we're back to Pillars of Fire being a thing, which is interesting. Then you could take it as an Obsidian Sentinel, the third upgrade, which is 25 points. An Obsidian Sentinel is magic resist 2. In addition, if an enemy wizard within 12 of one or more Sentinels tries so it doesn't stack there, tries to cast a spell, must first take a leadership test. If the test is failed, the wizard casting suffers a -3 modifier. If the test is passed, the wizard's casting roll suffers a -1 modifier, which is interesting. Then you have the Granite Sentinel for 35 points. This one improves its armor value by 1, which brings it to a 4-up. In addition, it's immune to multiple wounds. And if it has if it takes a cannonball or whatever, it just loses a single wound. And then finally, we have the Warpstone Sentinel. The Warpstone one basically is units in close combat with it are -1 to their toughness, which is interesting. Okay, so that was a ton of stuff. So not a lot of units in this army, but they sure have a lot of rules. Yeah, I'm not sure about the Sentinel. I think he's playable. I think he's unfortunately with just a 5-up armor save base, being a large target like that, potentially quite punchy. Although he does only have 3 attacks, which is not a lot. 3 attacks, like he yeah, and the stomp. So like not as much as other monsters in terms of offensive output, although he gets Monster Slayer and that kind of stuff there. But I think people are going to be shooting at him, and you may have a hard time getting him into combat. There's a decent chance that this guy will take enough plink damage from ballistic skill shooting and the odd spell or what have you to actually that you start to worry to lose him. Basically, like a giant, right? So I would be concerned about his survivability. In terms of the upgrades, the one I would go for, I think, is Granite Sentinel. The improved armor save by 1 is good. Bringing you up to a 4-up is fine. But ignoring multiple wounds, I think, is really helpful on this kind of model. This thing is going to be the natural prey of any cannons that show up. Anybody carrying an Ogre Blade is also going to just absolutely dummy this guy. So being able to bring multiple wounds down to 1, I think, is the best option. Aside from that, I think you can do some fun stuff with the Warpstone Sentinel to reduce people's toughness by 1, which is interesting. Or maybe, I think those are the 2 that I would go for, frankly. I'm not too convinced. Terracotta Sentinel to keep it cheap with a 6-up regen is fine. I'm not too convinced about making him a magician at this point. I think you've got enough wizards in this army. Magic, the Obsidians.
It's not bad though on the.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I think all of them are playable. I think probably keeping him alive to actually get in combat is your number 1 priority, which is why I'd go Granite, or I guess maybe Terracotta, but probably Granite is why I'd go with that. Offensive output is fine, but you're really fishing for 6s on Monster Slayer there for sure. That was a ton of stuff. Andrew, how do you feel about this big honking statue?
I'm kind of torn. There's some good stuff here for sure. Giving a Monster Slayer and Killing Blow on his Deadly Strike is pretty sweet. Toughness 6 is a good break point. A lot of the monsters, at least in the army I play with sort of similar points costs and whatnot, are usually toughness 5 with less wounds. And that is often a letdown when you take those things. So toughness 6 with 6 wounds is half decent. I think if I was to run him though, I'd just go Terracotta, keep him cheap, because if you go Granite, he becomes 265 points. I kind of like the anti-magic of the Obsidian, and that's it's a 12-inch bubble. But at the same time, wizards will probably have a good leadership save anyway, so that might not proc that often.
Yeah, and he's not too fast to get close to the wizards. Also, yeah.
I mean, he's move 6. It's fast enough. That's a 18-inch. If he marches 12, So it's like, if you're 24 inches away, all he has to do is get it within 12 or whatever. So to get that ability off at least. So like I think there's some play here. I know you like the granite, but chances are there's gonna be a dragon in this list.
Yeah.
And if you take the granite sentinel, this guy gets removed as a potential target for cannons. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but like if you have both this and a dragon, the cannon player is going to have to choose. It's like, do I focus down the dragon or do I focus down this guy? If you give him the granite, well, he's like, you're not going to ever shoot a cannon at this guy because it's like, cool, I'll do one wound at ever. So I'll just focus on the dragon. You know what I mean? So like,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
know that sounds weird, but like that's how I'd be thinking about it if I was fighting this with cannons. It'd be like, okay, well, I'll shoot the granite sentinel with a cannon because why would I ever waste a
Yeah.
multiple wound shot on that when there's another target I can be trying to get instead.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's play here. I'm not super sure what it is or what the most optimal is yet, especially with how kind of scattered this whole army seems to be on like this thing's good, this thing sucks. These things are good, but they don't super mesh. So it's like it's
Yeah.
hard to see how this fits in.
Yeah.
But it's not like the worst choice in the book. Like it's
Agreed.
a good medium top of the pack type pick for this.
Yeah,
this
and like people like Gorgons, and this is I think better than a Gorgon. So I
it
mean,
is better than I don't know about that, buddy.
when you sure? I mean, it's higher
There's more
strength.
attacks. Some
Yeah,
more attacks of the Gorgon.
sure. But like this, yeah, and this one has a horde killing profile, so you could give it upgrades. It's
Yeah, I don't
unbreakable.
know.
Yeah,
I'm a big Gorgon fan, so
yeah, I think I prefer this. But regardless, like
let's
it's in
take
the
the
same
Gorgon
sort of weight class, right?
for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm not. I don't know. I think what's probably gonna kill it in the short term is this army's super tight for points. He's gonna be 230 to anywhere between 230 and 270. That is basically the cost of two cannons without the loaders there, but like two
Yeah,
cannons or a longma. Basically, they come in at 220, which are probably
yeah,
taking over these guys for sure. So
yeah,
yeah, I do think they're playable though for sure. Like,
yeah.
okay, cool. I like them, and they're a really cool model, and I think they're the easiest thing in the range to paint. So they got
Yes,
that
one
going
color.
for them. Yeah, one color. They dry brush super well, and off you go. Okay, so let's talk about items now. So first off, Andrew, why don't so we're gonna do the armory, so like the generic items like weapons and stuff that you could give everybody.
I should probably go
Andrew, you
this
want to?
first.
Yeah, it's fine. You wanna do the Cathayan lance?
Yep. Cathayan Lance is a lance. Can only be used by cavalry, monsters, or chariots. And the strength and armor piercing profile only applies to when the wielder charged. It gives a strength +1 and an AP -1 as armor bane 1 and fight in extra rank. So the fight in extra rank is where a lot of people seems to be focusing on
Yeah,
with the Jade Lancers and why they're good. Unfortunately, the Jade Lancers are only strength 3, so realistically you're only getting extra strength 4 AP1 attacks on the charge, which makes it worse than a regular lance
yeah,
in almost every
significantly. Yeah,
way. You don't even get the AP1. It's nice to have, I guess, but it's not very reliable at punching through armor, especially on units like Cav, where that's kind of what you're taking them for, is to sort of hit heavy on those bigger, tougher things. Like Lancers are kind of just going to bounce off of everything
yeah,
with only strength 4 AP1.
yep,
Sure, armor bane 1's nice, but if, again, I've said this before, if you're fishing for sixes, you're kind of probably doing things wrong,
yeah.
because that's not a super reliable thing to do.
Especially on a
Um,
model with a single attack. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. So I don't know. Like, man, even if they gave it like AP2 or something, but it's just not great.
Yeah.
And fighting in extra ranks, it doesn't make up for the damage output loss from
Yeah.
compared
And
to like a regular lance.
yeah, and like here's a couple of thoughts for you. Like fighting extra rank does nothing if you're a monster or a chariot, and then you can't take a regular lance, which sucks.
Yeah.
And then in cavalry, as I mentioned earlier, like you're getting significantly less output per model, and then you've got to buy additional models at 20 something points to get an extra crappy attack. So like I really don't rate this thing,
No,
unfortunately.
it's pretty shitty.
Okay, the Celestial Blade. Now let's talk about one that is nice. Strength +1, AP1, strikes first. Just nice and simple. It's like a 3, 4, 5 point upgrade. Strength +1 is good. AP1 is good. You can have your shield with it, and you strike first. So yeah, I like it. I think this is a good weapon. Yeah, I'd take it. Thoughts on this one?
Who gets these again?
So your characters can take them. Like if, for instance, you're not giving them a magic weapon, so you could do
Yeah.
that. The aside from that, I think only the sergeant in the unit can take one. Question
Okay.
mark and double checking, but you can't give them to all your jade warriors.
That's okay. Well, whatever.
No,
So
he can't.
looking at
You're
that.
sorry. Even the sergeant cannot. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So looking at this sword, it is basically the exact same as a weapon I take a lot on my Dark Elves, which is the Sword of Might for 20 points.
Yeah.
And all you're doing is swapping magical attack for strikes first.
Yeah.
So this is better in every way. It's a million times cheaper.
Yeah.
Anytime you can buff strength is awesome. It has a little bit of kicked in AP. I know before I just said AP1's kind of shitty, but if your option is AP nothing hand weapon or AP blade, obviously you're going to go for that. Because anything helps, but
Yeah.
again, this is a different use item too than what you would expect from a lance. So that's why I'm kind of
Yep.
saying AP1 here is okay. It'd be nice if it was higher, but whatever. I think this weapon, being able to strike first, throw it on a sergeant, do a cheeky fucking wound at the beginning.
Mhm.
If you're doing one of those stupid Wolves of the
Warriors
Sea
duels.
duels,
Yeah.
yeah, the Warriors duel, you throw him out with his strikes first weapon, and maybe you get it. Yeah, I
Cheeky
dig it. It's
kill. Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
cheeky little kill. Go first in the game. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. And so the other thing we have to say is like in terms of strength +1 there is this army has, as far as it is right now, has no access to great weapons, which is how you get most of your strength +2, which is both like a massive downside, frankly, but also like just makes strength +1 more valuable in that context. So there is that. And the last thing I'll say on both of these, Andrew, is that the blade gets even better and the lance gets even worse if we actually have the changes that are rumored in terms of like parry saves and infantry getting an extra +1 of armor if they have hand weapon and shield, because suddenly the celestial blade guys get another point of armor, and then these Cathayan lance are fighting into an extra point of armor generally. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Okay. Next up is the Dragonfire pistol. 12-inch range, strength 5, AP1. It has flaming attacks, multiple shots 2, and quick shot. So it's a
not
decent
the,
little
the Chaos
pistol.
Dwarf gun.
It's better than the Chaos Dwarf one.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it's better because it's multiple shots. It's higher strength also. It has flaming attacks, which often can be a downside, but yeah. I don't hate this. You're just probably not often going to have the points to start putting little pistols so that your unit has 2 shots when they get charged. So I'm not convinced, but like as far as pistols go, this is one of the better pistols. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I don't know. It's a pistol.
Yeah.
There's not much to say about it. Like
Yeah.
the few things that can take it, like I'm sure, having that little extra bit of ballistic skill shooting is nice. It'd be nicer if there was, an actual dedicated shooting unit in this game, and maybe this would be like a sergeant upgrade or something.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the next AJ we see something like that. But yeah, it's a decent little gun. I don't. It's not like game breaking or anything. Strength 5's nice.
Certainly not game breaking. You want to take gunpowder bombs?
Yeah. They are range 9, strength 3. They are armor bane 1. They have no actual inherent AP though. They have move and shoot and quick shots. If the roll to hit is successful, the gunpowder bomb causes D3 hits to a target enemy unit. That is cool. What actually gets that? Is that the balloon stuff?
Yeah, you can put it there. Also, I think the ogre loader gives it to all the crew, so that you get a bunch of D3 grenades going off when you get charged by light cavalry. Fun.
Sick. I like this then.
Yeah, it's okay.
Quick shots. So you can actually stand and shoot even if
Yeah,
they're close.
absolutely.
Yeah, this is actually pretty sweet, especially
Yeah.
on, like you said, the the cannon. You're probably gonna take the fucking ogre at least on one or two of them.
Yeah.
So having 4 guys throwing these out, you
Yep.
probably get 1 or 2 hits, and then each one of those hits becomes D3 hits is pretty juicy. Same with
it is.
the fucking balloon, just tossing a bunch of these out. Like, it's not bad. I dig it.
Sure. Yep. And then there's the upgraded version, which is Dragon Fire Bombs, which are range 9, strength 4, AP 1 base, armor bane 1, move and shoot, quick shot, D3 plus 1 hits. So when they hit, instead of doing D3, they do D3 plus 1. And they are 10 points versus the 5 points of the gunpowder bombs. Yeah, nice. Nice little grenade. I guess if I'm taking a grenade, especially on the, you don't get a choice on the ogre loader, but on the balloon, I'd probably take the dragon fire bomb if I was going to take one of those. I'm not convinced I would, but hey, it's a nice little option. Don't have a ton to say about this. I don't think it's massively impactful. Andrew?
That's expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's only 20 points for the whole chariot, though. I'm looking at the Sky Lantern again.
Oh, okay.
So you get 4 gunners and a commander on it. So for 20 points, all of them can get the dragon fire bombs instead. So I think that's a decent thing, especially because it flies and it already has the
Sure.
bombing run thing. Like, you can be super annoying with this chariot, just kind of like fluttering around units, tossing bombs on everything. And
Yeah. Its only problem is it has an enormous base, and moving around units is going to be difficult. I think it's 100 by 100 base,
100 by 100.
and then it's like range 9 on the bomb, so you're going to quickly be within charge range if you do that.
Yeah.
So not sure, but it is good. Like, it is a good amount of output for 20 points. But yeah.
All right, magic items.
Yeah, let's do these. These have some fun ones. You want to take the Monkey King's Wisdom?
Yeah, so this is the proverbial super expensive weapon that every book has. It is 75 points. I'm gonna go special rules first because the spicy shit's actually in the strength and AP. It has magical attacks, multiple wounds D3. It requires 2 hands and strikes last. For that though, you get a strength 10 AP 4 weapon. This thing is fucking crazy. I mean, 75 points. 75 points is a lot, but basically you swing like a cannon.
Yes.
You even have the multiple wounds of the cannon. Like, as far as those ridiculously costed magic weapons goes, like, I'm sure there's play here somehow.
Yeah. I think there is. Go ahead. I think I'll tell you what the play is.
I think there's probably better choices still. to take, but if you take this for a laugh, like you're still gonna fuck shit up with this. Like that's a crazy profile, but I think there's probably more optimal ways to equip your combat characters
Yeah,
and use
yeah, I
your
think
100-point allotment. But
yeah.
go ahead, Kevin, because I'm
Yeah,
just gonna
so
keep rambling about it.
I think it has more play than in a lot of other armies because your characters come with an inbuilt ward save. So at least you got that going, and they're usually like
That's
7
true.
wounds. So they're decently survivable as is. I think right now there's not a really good enough combat character to really get the most value out of this one. Like the Shugengan Lord doesn't really have enough attacks for me. That being said, if you go Shugengan Lord with illusion and then you spectral doppelganger this thing, because you can be casting if you have another caster nearby, you're like at least on a 5+, so you're probably getting spectral doppelganger and then doing 2d6 automatically hitting strength 10 AP4 multiple wounds 3 attacks. You're gonna flatten shit. Like yikes, that will mess something up. I think that's the play. Like there's a lot of counters to that, like a crazy weapon on an illusion caster. Like this is not a new play by any stretch, but yeah, I mean it's fun. Like I want to roll those dice and it'll be fun to roll, but yeah.
Just
In
watch
general,
the
as
soul leave the person's eyes as you're doing it.
yeah, they've got oh, what's this? Your 600-point dragon? All right, I'm gonna do 10, 8 strength 10 AP4 automatically hitting attacks to it.
And let me just
Is
fire
wild.
up the spell for a second.
Yeah. Spectral
All right.
doppelganger.
Yeah. Go ahead. Next one.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one, I really like this one. The Jade Blade of the Great Fleet. It is 70 points, so it is super expensive. It's close combat weapon, of course. It's strength +2, AP2, armor bane 1, magical attacks, but it also gives the wielder regen 5+. So basically, it's a magical great weapon that doesn't strike last and that is single hand, so you can still use your shield. And then it gives you regen 5+. Now, yeah, it is 70 points, but because your characters are like going to be armor save 3 up or whatever, because of in most cases the Longma is like innate armor because its hide is +2 there, and then you've got an inbuilt ward save. So now you're looking at it like a 3 up, 5 up, 5 up for 70 points. Yeah, it is expensive with a magical great weapon that's not strike last. Like I think this is a good deal. If I think in my own army, the Black Orc War Boss, it costs me 70 points to get a 5 up, 5 up on him between the Talisman of Protection and the Trollhide Trousers. So like that is kind of the going rate anyways. It's just your ward save is built in. So yeah, I don't hate this at all. I just think you're going to struggle to find the points for it because everything is already so expensive. But yeah, I think this is a good item. And in the future, if you get some sort of unmarked dragon, like one of that's not a special character or whatever, then this kind of item really gains a lot of additional value. So yeah, I like this. What are your thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, like I think you covered the main points. Like, sure, it seems expensive at face value. Usually, the super expensive weapons are kind of memey. But this one, because, like you said, all your characters who can actually take this already have built-in ward saves. Like, what you get out of this weapon makes sense, given that
Yeah.
you get your magical weapon as strength 2, AP2, and then it has built-in regen. Like you're just buying one item that you would just spend the same amount of points buying multiple items to get the same output. So
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense here. It's a cool weapon. I think you probably will see it. Probably see it more than the Monkey Wisdom too. Maybe on some like super defensive Longman
Yeah.
general.
Sure. Yeah. Good. You want to take the Spirit Longma Spear?
Yeah. So Spirit Longma Spear is 25 points. Strength +1, AP3, Armor Bane 1, and Magical Attack. Not bad. It's 5 points more than the Sword of Might. For a much better AP. And magical attacks. Like this is a decent weapon.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks on tough or strength 3 guys. Although I think all the generals are strength 4 anyway, so
Yeah, they are.
Not too bad. Strength 5 could be better, but it's not the worst.
Yeah, and because it's a lance essentially, it only gets these bonuses on the turn in which it's charged. Yeah.
That part's cut off on my picture.
Yeah. So
maybe a little bit less than, yeah.
Yeah, but I think
A
it's
little bit
still
less good.
playable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, chances are, like, especially on those Logma characters, like, you will be the one charging unless you
Yeah.
super fuck up. So, like, you'll probably get use out of this.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
not
I
bad.
mentioned it earlier, but like in an army where there are no great weapons, suddenly strength 1 items become a lot more valuable, especially when that has AP3.
For sure.
Okay, the Sun and Moon Blades is the last one. There are 20 points. Strength user, AP1, extra attacks 1. They require 2 hands, of course, have magical attacks. So if the wielder of the Sun and Moon Blades is struck by a killing blow, you roll a d6, and on a 4-up, the killing blow is discarded and it has no further effects. I'm not convinced about this one. Like strength users or strength 4 AP1, sure you get an extra attack, but I mean it's a strength 4 AP1 attack. Yeah, I mean not getting affected by half the time by killing blow is fine, except most of the time you're putting, I guess, combat weapons on your longmas. And they're monstrous creatures, so this actually doesn't apply to them at all. So you're getting no value there. I guess you could do like a gate master on a horse, but those things are so cheap that I don't see why you'd invest 20 points to save it from killing blow half the time. Like it's not a big enough threat that it matters, and you're not using weapons that are better in that case. So yeah, I'm not a meh. I'm not. I think these are not great actually. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, like you said, like there's nothing worth putting it on, and that anything you would be worried about killing blow from, you're gonna want to give a better weapon to anyway.
Sure.
Like this is your weapon slot that you're using, so yeah, not worth it.
Okay. You want to take the armor of the warbird?
Yeah, so it's 45 points. Models whose troop type is regular infantry or heavy infantry only. The armor of the warbird is a suit of heavy armor. In addition, the counter charge, fly 9, and swift stride rules. However, they cannot join a unit. So it's a better flying carpet.
Yeah, much better. Yeah. Well, a little bit better.
I mean, flying carpet just gives you like fly 8.
Yeah, and swift stride. It gives you swift stride also.
Does it give you swift stride?
Yeah, and I think it's 40
I've been
points.
using it wrong. 40 points, but you don't got counter charge.
No, you
I don't
don't.
know why you would want that on a lone guy.
Yeah, I think that's the point, right? There's nobody in this army that wants to take this currently. Maybe in the future you get some crazy model that makes use of it. Like if you have, I don't know, some Doom Bull equivalent, then this is great. But in a world where you only have human, like they have good weapon
imagine
skill.
this on a Doom Bull?
It'd be fucking mental, but it would be ridiculous. But that being said, sorry, I'm having some amazing thoughts about a flying Doom Bull. But I don't think the foot characters in this army are good enough to actually make it so that you want to spend 45 points to give them like fly and counter charge. Yeah, this is shit. The next one I think is kind of decent though. The Shield of Nangao. Shield of Nangao is a shield, fantastic. So it gives you +1 to your armor save there. In addition, during a turn in which the bearer was charged, the Shield of Nangao improves its bearer's armor value by 2 to a maximum of 2 up. This is not bad actually. So 20 points is decently cheap. I don't think you want to put this on your longmas because they are generally the ones that are going to be doing the charging, and they're wizards, so you don't want to shut down their casting. So I guess that leaves you with like a character and a unit. If and those are going to get charged more often than they do the charging for sure. So then at least you when you're stuck in a challenge, like your sergeant or whatever is going to be on a 2-up armor save, I think. Yeah, so it's not bad at all. Because heavy armor plus a shield plus a 2-up here, so it's going to be on 2-up to sort of tank that challenge. It's fine. I don't hate it.
This would be the shield. So it'd be heavier. He'd be on a 3-up.
No, heavy armor. The shield will bring him to a 4-up, and then the improves its armor's bear value of its whatever the armor's value by 2. Doesn't that bring it up
But
to a 2-up?
This is a shield though. It replaces your
Oh.
shield. The shield of Nangao is a shield. In addition, during a turn in which the bear was charged,
Yeah.
the shield Nangao improves its armor value by 2. Okay,
Yeah,
so it's a
So I would
shield
say to a
plus
3
the-
total. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That makes more sense.
So
Yeah, it's pretty good.
yeah, it's all right. Cool little utility piece. Sure.
20 points.
I mean, I wouldn't laugh at you for taking this thing. I'm not sure. Not sure I'll have the points, but whatever. Okay, you want to take that crystal of Kunlan?
Yeah. So now we're into talismans. This
Yeah.
one's 35 points. The crystal of Kunlan gives its bearer a 5-up ward save against any wound suffered. In addition, if a natural 6 is rolled when making the ward save, every enemy model in base contact with the bearer suffers a strength 3 hit with AP of nothing. These attacks have the flaming attack special rule. It's kind of weird that it has a save considering most of the characters who can take this already have natural ward saves of usually 5+. Although it is neat that it will kind of damage back, but I don't think this item is that great because you're paying basically 35 points just for the secondary effect.
Yeah.
So probably not 100% worth taking, if at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is not good at all. 35 points because you've already got a ward save, so you're paying basically a talisman of protection that has no value to you at all. And then you get like the bounce back if you roll a 6, which you have to actually do there. But like, let's say you roll a 6, models get a 3. The models in base contact with you, so like 2-3 models are getting a strength 3 hit AP nil. Like that's, I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't think it's worth it. The next one, the Crown of Jade for 20 points. The Crown of Jade gives its wearer a 4-up ward save against any wounds suffered that were caused by magic missiles, a vortex, or an assailment spell. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a ton of this. I mean, 4-up ward is better, obviously, of course, than a 5-up, but you already come naturally with 5-ups. It's situational. You'll see some magic missiles for sure, but I don't know that there's enough of them on your like T5, 3-up, 5-up, whatever monster with 7 wounds. You really want to get a 4-up, pay 20 points to get a 4-up against magic missiles specifically. So I don't know that this sees a ton of play. I mean, it's not terrible either. It's
I mean, it's cheap enough. They can kind of slip it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Unlike your Longma guy, maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
Because he'll probably be the biggest target for like type magic missiles type things.
Yeah. I just think his magic points allocation is going to get sucked up in a bunch of other items, but yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's in a vacuum. It's fine. Let's say that.
Sure.
Okay, let's do magical standards. You want to do first one, Wei Jin?
Yeah. So standard of Wei Jin is 40 points. Unit carrying this standard causes fear. In addition, all enemy units within 12 of the model carrying standard suffer a -1 modifier to their leadership test when making fear, panic, or terror tests. I always think very highly of anything that fucks with opponent's leadership. How much terror is in this book? It's just the dragons, right?
Yeah, only the dragon is terror. Yeah.
So that's not great. That would be like the only real
Yeah.
useful use for this. So it's kind of overcosted, I feel, for the effect you get out of it.
Yeah.
and even like being able to cause fear. It's there's such small like edge cases where that's actually at all useful in any way. That's kind of, I don't think this is a good standard.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I think, I mean, fear, the good point is fear doesn't, I think it's more of a defensive item, frankly. So like fear means that you're no longer affected by terror. So if for some massive, like so for some weird reason, you make a big brick of Jade Warriors and you give them this thing so that they're not like they're not running when they're charged by a dragon or what have you. And then the -1 leadership, if you do have a big brick, and you have more unit strength than your opponent and they need to test before charging you, they're doing it at -1 also. So maybe, yeah, I don't think it's great. It's certainly not great. I'm trying to find reasons to take it. It's probably not going to make it into many lists, frankly. Cool. The Icon of Heavenly Fury. This one is 35 points. Single use. A unit carrying the icon of Heavenly Fury may activate it during the command subphase of its turn until your next turn, your next start of turn, sorry. Enemy units cannot use the fly special rule. So this is an interesting one. It's like a Falcon Horn, but you don't have to test leadership for, but it is only a single use a game. I think this like, yeah, it has play for sure. It depends on where I think the meta will land once the FAQ and the match play changes that are around the corner sort of show up, and how likely we are to see a lot of flyers moving forward. But like, regardless, if you're going to lean into the shooting build with a lot of cannons, like this pairs really well with that. So you can shut down your opponent's flying, and then you shut down their swift stride, and you reduce their movement and whatever, so that whatever dragon you're shooting at or other big monster is really shit out of luck, and is stuck in the middle of the board, taking 2 rounds of shooting and like moving, I don't know, 4 inches or something. So that's nice. Also nice if your like opponent is, I don't know, Bretonians or something, shutting down that Peg Knight bus for a turn can really save your bacon, as it were, especially if you're doing a bit more of a shooting build, and then you could start to plink at them with cannons and stuff. So yeah, I don't hate it. I think this has play, but it depends a little bit on your list and where the meta lands. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I think it's decent. There's definitely a lot of use you'll get out of what this gives you, just being able to shut down fly. And then, like you said, all the weird debuff to movement shenanigans that the cannons can do. You can definitely get some work done. And, especially if you get first turn,
Yeah. Yes.
you can basically shut down a dragon from the beginning of the game on with this and just keep plinking it with cannons until it eventually dies. So yeah, I think this is decent tech. I think you'll probably see this in a lot of competitive builds, at least if the flying monster meta stays the way it is. And yeah, I think it's a good item.
Awesome. You want to do the next one?
Yeah, the Dragon Eye banner is 30 points. When an enemy wizard chooses a unit carrying the Dragon Eye banner as a target of a spell, roll a d6. On a 3-up, the wizard's controlling player must choose another target. If there's no other viable target in range, the spell cannot be. I like it. I like that ability. Just thinking of my own games, some sort of hex or something on a unit I'm about to fuck up, and just thinking at those situations. Usually there's not other targets I can cast that hex on that are, worth it. So I think this is okay. Maybe it's a little bit too expensive. Although it is on a 3-up. It's not like it would be like a leadership test thing, then I'd say it'd be useless. I think my kind of like apprehension with this is it's 30 points and this army is very points hungry. I don't think you're just gonna have room to fit this in, even though it is like a pretty cool item. I just, yeah, I think you're gonna have a hard time finding those 30 points, or even having something you want to even put this on. Because
Agreed.
realistically, the only two things that it's gonna go into is Lancers or Jade Warriors,
Yeah.
and both those units suck anyway. So
Yeah, please cast your spells at those guys and not the rest of my army.
right, so yeah, it's kind of rough.
Yeah, so there's two things I like about it. The first one is, most of the items that impact spell casting in that way or similar ways in the game are, instead of a wizardly dispel, you can do this. This one at least is when they choose you, they have to roll, and then you can still do a wizardly dispel after, which is nice. And I guess sort of the follow-on point to that is, I think this is useful, but like only in a few specific contexts. And it's like you have to build a big Death Star type unit to really get any value out of this. Because if you have like a min-sized Jade Warrior unit of 10 models, I am not casting any spells at that thing. Maybe like a fireball or what have you there, but like it's not worth the investment. And I don't think, as you mentioned, Andrew, the 2 unit types that can take this are worth it right now. Maybe this is future proofing. Like maybe in wave 2, when you get like the, I don't know, Longma cavalry there, like the unit that's basically like Peg Knights, having this on them, right, where they can't get Miasmic Mirage, where they can't get a bunch of other annoying spells cast at them is better in that context.
100%.
Okay, and then the last one is the banner of the Bastion for 25 points. Unit carrying the banner of the Bastion gains shield wall. Warp. I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't think there's anything that wants it right now, really. I mean, sure, you can make your unit of Jade Warriors a little bit tougher, so that once they've used their stubborn, they can after that be on shield wall. But at that point, you have to have them with hand weapon and shields. So they're just not killing anything at all. They're just going to be slowly dying, I guess. Yeah, I don't really see a use case with the current units that we have. What about you?
Yeah, like cool shield wall. It's an okay ability to begin with, and on everything that you can put it on in this army, and like they're probably not going to be alive to use shield wall. Like
Yeah,
they're,
exactly.
they're fucking toughness 3 1 wound.
Yeah.
Humans, like I don't know.
Yeah, this would be like giving your state troops shield wall. Like, great.
Yeah, like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now we'll get to some slightly spicier stuff in the enchanted items and arcane items. You want to do the Moshard?
Yeah, so the Moshard is 40 points. If an enemy wizard rolls natural double when making a casting roll within 18 inches of the Moshard, the spell is miscast regardless of the casting result. That's cool. That's actually really good for 40 points, and this would be good if it was 40 points and like a 1-use item. Well, maybe not that, but like it's good. It always happens. It always goes off. You put this on some Longma like up front. One of your more, not your main one, but if you take
your cheap ones, your
cheap
baby ones,
and just go up there and be annoying, and then any doubles that are rolled becomes miscast. Like that's pretty good.
Yeah. If you run into that Beastman army that has like five shamans or whatever, or I don't know, mortuary cults or what have you that cast a million spells, like maybe.
Mortuary cults would hate this.
Yeah, I just think there's going to be some better items here in a second, maybe, and you're probably going to run out of points allotment in this army to take this. But I think in a vacuum, you're right. This is a good effect, and I like it. But it's an 18-inch bubble. Your Longmas are not skirmishers, so you're going to have to maneuver to get in the right spot, and then maybe your opponent could just move out of range or what have you. Like, so it's not foolproof. I think in a vacuum, it's decent, but there's also really good stuff coming up too that you could use there. So, okay, let's do the next one. Is the Alchemist's Mask. This is a good one. So the wearer of the Alchemist's Mask can cast Plague of Rust from the lore of Elementalism as a bound spell with a power level of 3. This is really good. So Plague of Rust is a very good spell. reducing your opponent's armor by 2, especially in an army where you're going to have not that much AP to start with, is super useful. You can also cast it into combat. It's not too hard of a cast either. On a 3+, it's possible. It has a long range. I think from memory, it's 21 inches of range on Plague of Rust. So that's also good. And I think critically, this is not a single use item. A lot of these types of items are single use. So no, I think this is really good. I really, really like this item. I rate it. I think it will make it. It's not an auto take because you do have a lot of good casters probably, but I think it does make it its way into competitive lists. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think you nailed it right on the head when you said in an army that doesn't have a lot of AP, this is going to be worth its weight in gold, just to help all those units that you have to take at least do something in combat when they make it there. Because like the best, even on your your cav, which is usually your heavy hitter, they're so being able to supplement that with the having a Plague of Rust that power level 3 is pretty decent. There's not a lot of, I think, power level 3 bounce spells yet around.
Nope.
So, there is a half decent chance you get it off without it being dispelled. So yeah, I think this is actually a really good item, and it's costed, fairly cheap for I think what it does, because it is something you can continuously use throughout the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, great item.
Yeah, I like it. You want to take the next one?
Yeah, the Spirit Lantern, 25 points. Extremely common. A model carrying the Spirit Lantern causes terror. In addition, a model carrying a Spirit Lantern may reroll rolls to wound of a natural 1 against enemy models that are demonic. 25 points for terror? Don't know if that's worth.
Really?
Maybe. Yeah, I think it's okay.
Well, I'm going. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
This and the 75-point sword on your Logma guy. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm gonna.
You tell me why.
I'm got a different opinion on you than you on this one. I think this is auto take. Auto take, really, really good. The reason why, so it's extremely common, so you could put them all over the place. Fairly cheap. 25 points means that it fits on your core infantry sergeant, like your Jade Warriors and your Jade Lancers, and I think this is the saving grace for the Jade Lancers. So you take them in units of 5, and you give them all terror, and suddenly you have 3 or 4 units of terror-causing cavalry to just force your opponent to take a bunch of checks. Same thing with your infantry. I know they don't get to charge very often, but if you're going to force me to take 500 points of shitty core, at least they're all going to be terror causers. And that's going to be really annoying into several armies, like a bunch of armies that have low leadership in general. And because they're cavalry on the Jade Lancers, they get to declare the charge more often than not. And then you have a chance of just running things down for free. I think it's really, really good as like a thing you put on a sergeant. On the Longma, I think it can also have play. Like that's not a bad call for sure. But it's just that there's going to be a lot of good magic items that the Longma can take, and there's good arcane items after also. Actually, there's better items after. So yeah, but I think this is auto take on my. If I'm playing Cathay, I put this on all my cavalry and infantry units.
Would you pair it with that banner of Wage In then?
Do you even force them to be a -1? Well, so I don't want them to become too expensive. Maybe if you're, maybe if you have a big unit, but
65 points of upgrades.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at it from another perspective, the Jade Warriors are not accomplishing anything in terms of fighting. So at least if they force somebody to run off the board or run away, that's something. But they just won't really get to declare much of a charge. Maybe you could put it on a big unit of cavalry, like if it's a terror causer, and then your opponent's doing -1 leadership also at the terror. Maybe, I guess, maybe. But I think just on its own, it's good. Really good.
Sure.
Yeah. there's a few more good ones after. We're into arcane items now. You want to take the Cloak of Pome?
Sure. 50 points. In addition to their randomly generated spells, the wearer of the Cloak of Pao knows all 3 spells from the lore of Ying, or the lore of Yang, chosen by the controlling player. However, they can only cast a number of spells equal to their level of wizardry per turn. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll get into it soon, but like those spells are pretty decent. So being able to just have a bigger toolbox of spells to have once you choose your lore or generate your lore, and then get an extra just 3 spells on top of that, like that's super decent, and it allows
Yep.
you to be a lot more flexible in how your wizard operates on the board. I think 50 points is good for that kind of level of customization.
I fully agree with you. I think the 2 lores have some really good spells that we'll get to like as very, very shortly here. Yeah, I think this is a good item. Again, I think it's competing with other good items, so I don't know that it'll always get in. But like it's yeah.
Like stupid for taking it.
No, exactly. And I think in a vacuum it's very good. I just don't know if it'll outcompete everything else, but yeah, it's a good item. The next one I think is auto take territory also. So the Guardian Feng Shi Bo is 35 points. It's extremely common, so you can put it all over your army if you want. An enemy model that directs its attacks against the owner of a Guardian Feng Shi Bo during the combat phase suffers a -1 modifier to its rolls to hit. This is very, very good. A -1 modifier to hit is brutal. If you can somehow get to -2, it's like game defining, but -1 is already very, very good. Extremely common, 35 points. That's great. The only thing I will say here is this is more for your characters. I think Longmas are almost always taking this thing, frankly, if you want to use them for combat purposes, because it actually doesn't spread to the unit, right? So like Slug Skin, for instance, in Beastman applies to the entire unit. This one doesn't. It's just the model. So there is that. But I think there's a lot of play on this one to have like some cheap level 1 casters on Longmas as like little combat dudes, like equivalent to your high elves on Griffins or what have you, that are like 7 wounds, 3 up, 5 up base with -1 to hit for under 200 points. I think that is a very, very good item in general. And then when you get better, sort of models and stuff with the second wave, like there's, I'm sure, going to be uses for this thing. What are your thoughts on the Feng Shi Bo?
Yeah, it's a good item. Definitely maybe a little undercosted.
Yeah,
Although I think that's because it's an arcane item, you can't just spread it around to like every
you're right.
unit.
You're right. It has to go to
So,
long lists. Yeah.
so I think that's a good place to have an item like this because it limits greatly what you can put it on. So I think that's kind of fair. Um, Although it makes me worry about if they ever release a generic dragon character. That
Yep.
dragon's probably going to be a caster. So being able to slap this on it, you're basically got your Nurgle dragon right there.
Yep.
But we'll see. Maybe they won't release a generic dragon since there's only what, like
8, I
9?
think. Yeah.
Yeah,
8.
8. Well, plus the parents.
Sure. 10 maybe. Yeah.
But they're all named and they're all accounted for, so it's not like they'll have a generic
Yeah. You're right.
version potentially. Who knows? Who knows what they got planned? Maybe they will. But yeah, this is a sweet item. And it's cheap enough that you can slap it around all over your lawn.
Yeah. Okay. And then the final one, the Learn Feng Shi Bo, 15 points. Want to take that one?
Why is it named the same?
Because one is the Guardian Feng Shi Bo. I think a Feng Shi Bo is like a spirit or something,
Oh,
and then
okay.
the Learned Feng Shi Bo. Yeah.
All right, well, this one's 15 points. It is also extremely common. The owner of the learned Feng Shi Bo knows one more spell than normal for their wizard. I mean, that's cool, I guess. But usually, I guess if you're rolling to get your spells, as someone who takes the Arcane Familiar never does that, or whatever the one it is, I guess this is worth it just to make sure when you're rolling you get the exact spell allotment you want without having to spend extra points to be able to just straight up pick. I think this is pretty. Yeah, the Lore Familiar, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, this is super worth it. You get an extra spell. But usually, like in those lore 3, maybe 4 that you really want. So this is, I guess, just a less better Lore Familiar. For 15 points, though, I think that's super decent price.
Yep. It's a spell familiar is the one that most armies have. So yeah, this is an item you see across a lot of armies. 15 points for an extra spell. Like vampire accounts have it. Your Warriors of Chaos have it. Like this kind of stuff. And if I remember correctly, when we did the list review for CHTT, the spell familiars was the most common item taken across all armies, just because like it's available to a lot of armies, but it's just good to be able to have 5 spells you roll on and then still switch one for one of your special lore spells. So no, this is a good item, extremely common. You can put it around. You can like give it to multiple units if you want to, or multiple casters. Good item. Not much to say. You know it, you love it. Okay, and then to close this out, we have the 2 new lores of magic. So the lore of Ying and the lore of Yang. You want to start us off with the constellation of the dragon in the lore of Ying. Yeah. Sorry, lore of Yang. Yang.
Yeah. So Constellation of the Dragon, it is a magic missile. It's one of those ones that have the 2 casting levels. So you either get it off on a 7+ or an 11+. It has a range of 18. Pretty good for a magic missile. This spell is cast with a casting result of 7 or more. The target enemy unit suffers d6+1 strength 4 hits, each with an AP of nothing. The spell was cast on 11 or more. The target enemy unit suffers 2d6 strength 4 hits, each with an AP of -1. This is a really decent spell. I think the 2 breaks on casting level are appropriate. They do. It is just strength 4 hits, so it's decent. If you're shooting at regular infantry for most armies, you're wounding on a 3 or a 4, depending on what it is. And then, a little bit of AP splashed in. This is perfect for blowing away, half unit, shit like that. But probably won't be doing a lot against the more heavier infantry and cav in the game, and for sure don't really care too much, especially with a lot of the defensive abilities on monster characters.
Yeah, I think it's a good spell. I like it as a signature spell. It's a good magic missile. I mean, so if you just cast it on the 7, it's an easier to cast fireball with shorter range, I guess. So you're getting d6+1 strength 4 AP nil instead of 2d6. So you're going from 7 average hits to maybe 4 or 5. Easier to cast. It's fine. But then when you get the 11+, which is not too hard on a level 4 caster, that's often going to be a level 5 in this army. 2d6+2, where you're hitting then that's like 9 to 10 hits on average. Strength 4, AP1. Like you can do some damage with that. So I think it's a good spell overall. Nothing game breaking, but it's good. So the Great Bastion, as the next one, is an enchantment spell. Casting value 9, range 12. So this one remains in play, which means it could be dispelled in your opponent's turn. The target friendly unit gains a 6+ ward save against any wounds suffered. In addition, every model within the front rank of an enemy unit that ends its charge move in base contact with the target of the spell essentially must make a dangerous terrain test, and then any wounds that are lost are counted for combat res. So basically, your unit becomes dangerous terrain and gets a 6+ ward save. Not a bad spell. Again, nothing game breaking. but not a bad spell on like a unit of infantry or something. I'm not sure you get tons of value on casting it on a monster or whatever, because or a fast move that's probably doing the charging itself, but because it needs to be your opponent that charges you to trigger the effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I don't hate it, but it's not. I'm probably not picking this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like in terms of signature spells, I don't think you'll opt for this very often. But
No,
if you choose to take that cloak and go into this, like you won't be disappointed having this in your toolbox
agreed. Yeah.
of spells. Um, but like you said, I don't think there's a lot of stuff unless you for some reason skew super heavy into like Jade Infantry. Like I don't think there's a lot of things that will make full use of this ability.
No.
Just because if you're taking cav and flying monsters and whatnot, you're trying to engineer situations where you're actually making the charge. But if you go, for some reason try to make a more defensive sort of staticky list, like I think this will see some play, but definitely not an auto take spell.
No. I'll take the next one just because it's cut off for you probably there, Andrew. So speaking of auto take territory, I think this one is pretty close. So the Might of Heaven and Earth is an enchantment. Casting value is either a 9+ or a 12+ for just increase effects. It's range self. So if the spell is cast with a result of 9 or more, the caster, their mount, and any unit they've joined gain a +1 modifier to weapon skill and strength for a maximum value of 10. They'll and gain this flaming attack special rule. If you cast it on a 12+, however, it's all friendly units within the caster's command range. So if your caster is a dragon, for instance, which is very possible with Miao Ying, or if your caster is a Longma because it's a monstrous creature, but he's not a large target though. But anyways, within their command range, everybody's getting +1 strength, +1 weapon skill, and +1 or flaming attacks, I should say. This is very good. Being able to give a big portion of your army +1 strength and then +1 weapon skill is very, very solid. Army is pretty low strength because it is like humans, and then just going up to weapon skill 4, strength 4, a base, and then strength 5, usually with your weapons, is like you're hitting some pretty significant breakpoints there before you do anything else with the units. I will say flaming attacks is like this one's a bit of a hit or miss. Like there's a lot of times where it's actually detrimental to have flaming attacks because your opponent has ward saves against it. But I think just being able to have a massive bubble of +1 strength for your army is a wild effect, and I think this is a very good spell. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's really good. You might struggle to get it off though.
Yeah,
It's kind of I don't know. Definitely the effect is amazing, especially if you get the bubble effect as opposed to just the regular. But casting on a +12, like
so
you need to add
56% of the time, right? Because you're as long as you keep another wizard not too far away, you're on a 5+ in this army, and then you just need to roll a 7, which is 56%. Right?
sure.
Yeah, and it's range self, so you're in combat, you can keep casting it.
Yep.
So that's great. And then the other thing I'll say is like, even if you just get the 9 up, let's say on your dragon, suddenly your dragon goes to strength 8 base. It's wounding other dragons on 2 ups.
Oh yeah, it's
That's
good
good.
on the dragon for sure, but it's
Yeah,
just the bubble effect you need to engineer because to even get the +1 to cast, you need another wizard with 6 inches. So all of
yeah,
a sudden, your whole force is starting to become a little bit more static or moving. You're not spreading out your force, so you gotta. I don't know. It's definitely a good spell. You're definitely
sure.
probably gonna auto take into this if you're skewing that way with your army, and this army definitely needs that buff to damage for sure because there is just a lot of strength 4 and strength 3. So
Yeah, yeah,
anything that can help with that is going to be huge. It's just I feel like you're going to struggle to get that 12 every time. It's not going to
sure.
be like it's not something you're going to be able to bank on, and if you don't get it off and you've set yourself up in a way trying to get it off, you might fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Because it is, one of the highest castings. How many 12 plus spells are out there? Not
Not a
many.
lot. No, I think that's one of a handful. Yeah.
Especially if they fuck around with
Casting levels. Yeah.
casting levels, which we've seen a couple of the wish list quote unquote leaks say there might be. Like, this might actually become a lot harder to get off, depending on what they choose to do with magic.
Agreed.
But it's a good spell. I'm not going to deny that. It's just you'll probably opt for Consolation of the Dragon first over this.
Really, I'm not sure. I think they're both viable, frankly. I kind of think I prefer Might of Heaven and Earth, but I think Constellation of the Dragon is good.
I mean, maybe if you taking the Dragon Lady, she would opt this just for
Yeah.
the buff to herself alone, because she
Yeah.
kind of needs it. If you're taking like a bunch of Longmas or some shit and to take the dragon, I'm iffy on this. It
Yeah.
just seems too hard to get that consistently to make it work for your army.
Agreed. Yeah, and I mean, if you take a bunch of Longmas, you could get a nice little machine gun going of
Yeah.
Constellation of the Dragon, rolling some other magic missiles and stuff. So yeah. Okay, so anyways, there's two good spells in there. Two really good spells. Okay, we're gonna go now to the lore of, I believe, Ying. You want to do the first one because the other ones will be cut off for you, I think. Yeah.
Yep. So Spirit of Wind and Shadow. It is a hex. It casts on a 10 with a range of 15. Until your next start of turn subphase, the target enemy unit becomes subject to 6 special rule. That is amazing.
Yes, it's good.
Anything that can fuck with movement, especially in such a detrimental way as this, because if you guys remember, random movers don't charge.
Mhm.
That means the best you're going to move with the unit that's hexed this way is d6 inches, or the best you're going to get
6
is 6
inches,
inches. No charging, no swift stride, just 6 fucking inches. So if your opponent set up some fucking sweet combo charge on you and you're about to get wrecked, this is going to save your ass huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an amazing spell. Cast on a 10, like it's
Feasible,
high, but it's not a 12. And with a +4 to cast, if they don't change magic that much, it's easily able to get off. So yeah, this is an amazing spell.
Yeah, I think this is very good. Also, yeah, just saves your ass if things are about to go sideways. You cast this. Think of the infamous peg bus with 5 or 6 peg knights and 2 or 3 characters in there, and then you just stop them from charging because you just have to go 3 inches, let's say, after. That's very, very, very good. Same thing if you have like a dragon. Same thing if you have some crazy infant cavalry unit. Not that there are many, but like if that happens, yeah, very good. So I think we're in agreement on this one. The next one is the Accursed Mirror. It's an interesting one. So it's a hex, casting value of 9, 15-inch range. So until your next start of turn subphase, any rolls to hit of a natural 1 made by the target enemy unit during either the shooting phase or the combat phase result in a strength 3 AP1 hit, which must be resolved against the target enemy unit. You can also cast this on units that are in combat. So I've seen a lot of talk online about this one as like some sort of counter to poison brick shooting or what have you. I'm not convinced, frankly. I don't think like doing a little bit of math, this really pans out. I don't think this is that great of a spell compared to some of the other ones that are in here. So like if, for instance, your opponent, just to make the math easy to understand, has 60 poison shooters, that means that they're getting usually on average 10 rolls of a 1. And then that means that they're going to take 10 strength 3 hits. At least all of the shooters that I know of are toughness 3, sorry. So that means half of those are not wounding. So you're down to 5 wounds, and then probably you're going to kill 5, maybe 4 there, let's say. So, you have to be within shooting range of your opponent for you to cast this hex, which means you have to have been shot the turn before, because you would cast this before you move, and then maybe you kill 5 goblins at the end of it. I'm not sure this is worth it as to pick up 15 points worth of goblins, 5 out of their 60 in the unit. I'm not convinced. And the other problem with this is it's only in the shooting phase or combat phase, which means that if your opponent, if you charge and they do stand and shoot, that's in the movement phase. So it wouldn't apply in that phase either. So, I'm not convinced. And then in close combat, there's not a lot of things that have enough of a volume of attacks for this to matter. Like most units of infantry or whatever that will be affected significantly by strength 3 hits are going to be of a frontage between 6 and maybe 10 if your opponent's pushing it, and then you're only going to get 1 or 2 strength 3 hits out of it. So yeah, I'm actually not really convinced about the spell. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's okay. I personally, with my army, don't want it because one of my big dealers is a frenzied witch block with no
Yeah.
armor. And they're usually pushing out 3 attacks a piece, and I run them 7 wide. So there's a lot of potential there for me to end up killing myself or a good chunk of my unit, but that's also a weird edge case.
Yeah.
And the only things I think in the same boat would be frenzied gores and corn marauders.
Yeah, but those are so gores
unit
are T4, right?
T4, yeah. So it's even less of an issue for them than the marauders and my witches, but that's 2 units out of however many are in the game.
Yeah. And even your witches, if they do 21 attacks, that's maybe, I don't know, 6.
I'm pretty good at rolling ones. Let's be honest.
All right, sure.
So maybe on an actual average, but when I'm rolling, it's a lot of dead witches, bud.
Yeah, it's more like 3 or 4, but 3 or 4, and then they wound half the time. It's not much. Maybe 2 witches.
Yeah. With that, I think the other issue though would be it counts for combat res if it's in close combat, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
So that's kind of worrisome, but as a counter to the poison shooting, yeah, I think it's nothing. The 3 big ones are what? Ungor, Goblins, and Tomb Kings. Tomb Kings don't give a fuck, they'll get those models right back.
Yes, so 0 value, yeah.
0 valor, you against them, and then, the Goblins and the Ungor. Sure, I guess it sucks to lose 4 models out of your giant block, but it's not going to do enough to change the outcome of the game or even the effectiveness of the unit in shooting. So, yeah, I wouldn't take it over Spirits of Wind and Shadow. That's for fucking sure.
Agreed. Wholly agreed. Yeah. Okay, Ancestral Warriors, the last one. This is an assailment. It's cast on a 7 or an 11. There's a lot of 2-tiered spells in these lures, eh? So 7 or 11. So if this one is cast with a result of 7 or more, a single enemy unit the caster is engaged with in combat suffers 2d3 strength 2 hits with an AP of nothing. If this spell is cast with a result of 11 or more, the target enemy unit suffers 2d6 strength 4 AP 1 armor bane 1 hits instead. Yeah, I think it's as far as assailment goes, it's fairly decent. I don't know why you're picking an assailment spell like this because it's one of your signature lores, but I mean, if you're dead set on having an assailment, this is not a bad one. I mean, I'm 100% taking Spirits of Wind and Shadow though over this, and I'd even probably take a Cursed Mirror over this. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's not a great assailment. Usually relying on assailments to get shit done is already risky business to begin with, and it's not as good as some of the other options that are out there for assailment spells.
Yeah.
Um,
Better than some, worse than some. Yeah.
yeah, like there's some real stinkers, but like
Yeah.
thinking of like Hammerhand,
Yeah.
even
Well, okay, that
Doppelganger,
one's fucking amazing. Yeah.
right? But like those are probably the lures you're gonna be taking with this army anyway.
Yeah.
Battle magic or illusion.
Yeah.
So you have access to better assailment spells than this one. So if you have the chance, you'd probably just keep those and get rid of this for Spirits of Wind and Shadow.
Yeah.
You're always going to take that. Like
What are your feelings about Spirits of Wind and Shadow?
it is
Amazing.
maybe one of the best hex spells in the game.
Yeah, agreed. I don't disagree. Yeah.
Easy
Okay,
to
good.
cast and huge range, and it completely destroys the biggest, scariest thing charging at you.
Yep. Agreed. And like if you have several longmas that are like on 5-ups, and then you can increase a 5+ to cast. Well, you can only do that once, but regardless, that are 4-up, whatever. And then you get extra range out of the Winds of Magic or whatever rule that it's called. So you're casting at 18-inch range or whatever. You can actually shut down a significant part of your opponent's army. Most armies don't have like 5 or 6 units that are charging and that are doing damage certainly not every turn, but even in the army. So you can actually shut down their entire damage potential pretty quickly with even a few of these spells. Yeah. Okay, so this closes out everything. This was a lengthy review, but it's of course an entirely new army. So just before we close this one out, Andrew, any thoughts overall on how this all comes together? Like anything you want to shout out? Any thoughts on like the competitive potential? Like, yeah, final thoughts on the army.
I think we mostly said it all at the beginning.
Yeah.
But now that we've gone through it and kind of proved our case here, like there's good stuff in this army for sure. I think there's a decent competitive build here. I think it'll probably be good. Like it could probably win like 1-dayers, like three round tournaments. It's probably like a 4-1 or a 3-2 at sort of those bigger 2-day events.
Yeah.
I don't think it has enough juice to go all the way in sort of like a larger
No.
5-game tournament. But there's definitely some bones here. It's just really lacking in options. It's really lacking in reliable stuff outside of your character allotment and well, that's about it.
Yeah.
Like there's there's a good cannon there. Um, the terracotta statue might see some play, but I think there's better options as well. But I think the rest it's kind of cluster, and it really needs a lot of help from either magic support or just comboing in with characters. But then again, you're gonna have a hard time finding the points to get everything you need into a Cathay list. So yeah, I think there's bones here. I think it just needs a little bit more meat once we see that second arcane journal.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with you entirely. It's like there's some good items. They just, as we've mentioned all evening, they don't synergize well, and it's tough to make a very good list out of it. I mean, and your lists are going to look pretty samey, unfortunately. Dragon, longmas, and cannons can only take you so far, and they do have some pretty bad matchups if you do run into them. So there's that. I think it has a fairly decent selection of items compared to a bunch of other armies. Like there's stuff that I want to take in here. There's some useful weapons. There's some really good arcane items and enchanted items. Some extremely common items that you're going to want to take, like the -1 to hit, or the -1 to hit for sure, and the terror causing. Like there's some good stuff in here. It just doesn't synergize super well. I think competitively speaking, this is like a 3-2 list for me, which is fine. Like for somebody who knows what they're doing and they've built their list well, Like, because this list, so this army to me is not on the level certainly of Tomb Kings. It's not on the level of Bretonnians. It cannot compete really at the higher levels of play with vampire counts. It's below Warriors of Chaos for sure. I think it's below High Elves also, and even I would rate it. No, actually, I would definitely rate it below Beastmen. So I mean, there's enough armies, and like that's half the armies basically that I rated, that I listed there, and you're going to run into 2 or 3 of those for sure if you're doing a 5 or 6 game event, and you're going to be really hard pressed to win into those. So yeah, I think it's a 3-2 list at best. It's got some legs. You could have a decent take all comers list, which is just composed of everything we've talked about all evening. I think we said the word Longma 500 times in this episode, and you're like, they're going to be in that list with the cannons, and that's going to be that. So yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out with the second half of this army, or sorry, if the rumors we heard actually pan out, the second 2/3 of this army, because there would be 3 waves. I think yeah, that'll really help them out. So yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed this lengthy review out there. Thanks for sticking with us. I don't have much to shout out. Just make sure you get your tickets if you're within driving distance or flying distance for CCBB in August. And yeah, have a good one. Andrew, anything you want to shout out as we close this one out?
Oh, you stole. I was gonna say tickets are still on sale for CCBB. That's happening at the end of August. So if you're interested, check out Cam Hanhammer on Facebook or look up capital C blah blah CP and buy your tickets and come out.
Perfect.
And we'll cover the event in another episode closer to it.
We will. All right. Have a good one, and see you all next time.
Bye.